Hello, this is your host, Adam Graham, from Pretty Much the Present. And in this video, we'll be bringing you a compilation of old-time radio detective podcasts from 2010. The podcasts are appearing, for the most part, unedited, except for some extraneous or repetitive elements that are being removed because this is a compilation. As I said, these are old, so any websites or offers mentioned may not be valid at the time you're listening unless you find them on our website currently. Now, with that said, here is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. Got a comment? Email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And become a fan of the show on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. I did misspeak slightly on Friday's show when I said that the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio had finished 25th on Podcast Alley last month. I was making that statement before the month was over, but in the last hours we slipped into number 26. So I encourage everybody to vote. You don't have to leave a comment. It's appreciated, but not required at Podcast Alley. Tommy from Kentucky emails in, they loves the podcast, but to the subject, I was listening to Box 13 one night, and a thought hit me. The show Castle uses pretty much the same format that Box 13 did. The main characters are both writers trying to come up with ideas for new stories while trying to solve mysteries. I find it kind of funny that the concept of an old show like Box 13 would be so successful today. Any thoughts on the similarities? Well, I think there are some differences between Box 13 and Castle, such as the lack of a P.O. box, but it does show that perhaps in some ways people's tastes haven't changed all that much. And I think that these old radio shows really are a good source of ideas for writers. I would never advocate copying wholesale a story from a radio show. That would be known as plagiarism. But writers all the time get inspired by other stories and other things and put kind of their own spin on a particular story just because there are only so many story plots that can actually be told. He also asked, why can't I find any collections of Box 13 on any of the old-time radio sites? I'm not certain why. It actually is one of the more common series out there, to be honest. You can get it, go to archive.org. I sent that link. If you're looking for a higher quality CD version, radioarchives.com has a Box 13 collection, has 20 episodes in it, if you really want high quality. So I hope that helps. Archive.org is generally one of the first places I go when I'm looking for a show, and about 8 times out of 10 they'll have it. So archive.org, you can just put in the name of the series and search for audio, and you should usually find what you need. All right, well, before we get started, I want to have just a brief word about our sponsor. You know, I just heard the most amazing article in the Wall Street Journal on the California Senate race. That's right, I heard the article. That's because with Audible, I get an audio subscription to the Wall Street Journal with some of their best stories in it. You can get, with an Audible membership, you get a subscription to either the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. So as you go about your busy day, you can keep informed of what's going on in the world. Plus being able to access a world of entertainment and information with bestsellers, classic radio shows like The Shadow, as well as several British radio shows such as Doctor Who, available for you to listen on your iPod or other MP3 player. If you want to take advantage of this, you can try Audible out for free for 2 weeks and get a free audiobook. Go to audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio to sign up. That's audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio, or just go to greatdetectives.net and click on the links there for one of the offers. But now, without any further ado, let's get into today's episode of Box 13, Hunt and Peck.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
Box 13, care of Star Times. We're allowed newspapers here, and by chance I saw your advertisement. I have exactly 48 hours to live. No more than that, unless you can do something which no one else has been able to do. Get me out of the death cell of the state penitentiary. I was tried and convicted for the murder of one of my best friends.
I was tried and convicted for the murder of one of my best friends. I didn't do it. Will you try to help? Martin Kirby. When I received the letter from Martin Kirby, I wondered how a man felt who had only a short time to live and knew it. Before the thing was over, well, I'd stopped wondering. I knew.
And now, back to Box 13 and Dan Holliday's newest adventure, Hunt and Peck.
Gee, Mr. Holliday, what can you do about it?
Susie, I wish I had an answer for you.
You're going to see him, aren't you?
Well, if I don't, I'd kick myself all over the city for not doing what I could. On the other hand, he was tried, convicted, and sentenced.
But it could be wrong. I mean...
I know what you mean. Susie, sentencing a man to death is a terrible thing. The evidence against Kirby must have been pretty strong.
Uh-huh, I guess it was. You're on the horns of an Aunt Emma.
Dilemma. And this time, Susie, I don't laugh.
What are you going to do?
Well, the only thing I can do. See Martin Kirby and, well, at least listen to him.
I didn't think you'd come, Mr. Holliday.
Why not?
Well, there must have been a million guys in this place. All innocent.
Sure, maybe. Some of them were and are.
I am.
What time? I mean...
I know what you mean. It's 1:30 now. I've got the rest of today until tomorrow night at 11:30.
34 hours.
I know. I've counted them, too.
All right, Kirby, what can I do?
I don't know.
Is there anything you can tell me, something that didn't come out at the trial?
The only thing that didn't come out at my trial was the fact that I didn't kill Leslie Roberts. Oh, I kept saying it, but there was too much against me. At first, when I got here, I didn't care anymore. If they wanted to see an innocent man die for something he didn't do, then it was murder on their heads. But now, Mr. Holliday, I want to live.
Sure. But there's nothing you can tell me. Anything that I can go to the police with and get a reprieve, a stay of execution?
My lawyer's tried that 100 times. My case has been reviewed. Nothing doing.
Then what you're asking of me is to do what everyone else has failed at.
I guess that's it.
You know, Kirby, it's at times like this that I wish I'd never put that Box 13 ad in the paper.
Meaning there's nothing you'll do?
No, I didn't say that. I'll try, but 34 hours is a short time.
Look, maybe you'll go at this with a fresh slant. Maybe something will hit you that everyone else has missed.
Yeah, maybe. All right, Kirby, it'll take me 2 hours to get back to the city, and, well, if I'm going to do anything, I'll have to do it fast. Driving back to the city, I felt like someone who has to tell a kid there's no Santa Claus. Because I was almost sure that Kirby had no chance. What could I do? The police were no fools. The district attorney must have had an airtight case against Kirby when he went to trial. Well, I'd promised to help, so my first stop in the city was the Star-Times, and down to the morgue to read up on the case. It was all there. Whoever covered the case for the Star-Times had done a great job of reporting. I looked at my watch. It was 3:45. Martin Kirby had 2 hours and 15 minutes less than the original 34, and all I had done so far was Well, it was to stack up a pile of newspapers. I started from the beginning, but the story of the murder of Leslie Roberts itself told me nothing. Then I got into the transcript of the trial. It took me 3 hours to read everything carefully. And when I finished, I could have summed up the whole thing just as the prosecutor did.
Gentlemen of the jury, you've heard the testimony in this case. The state has proved the following facts. 1, Martin Kirby was desperately in need of money. 2, the deceased, Leslie Roberts, was insured for $100,000. His beneficiaries being the accused, Martin Kirby, and another partner, William Morgan. The double indemnity clause in the insurance policy meant that both Kirby and Morgan would receive $100,000 each. Third point. The accused quarreled with the deceased over Mrs. Roberts, wife of the murdered man. Fourth, we have established the murder weapon. This gun belonged to Martin Kirby. True, the serial numbers were filed off, but scientific work revealed the numbers, and this gun belonged to Martin Kirby. He's admitted it. And thinking to get rid of it, he threw it into a sewer near Leslie Roberts' home. Now, perhaps Mr. Kirby believed the police of this city to be fools. Far from it. Their work has established beyond doubt that Martin Kirby is a murderer.
Oh, sure, it was a good case. I stacked the papers in a pile and left the Star Times and went down to police headquarters to see Lieutenant Kling.
Sit down, Dan. What's on your mind?
Martin Kirby?
Oh, why?
I've seen him. He wrote to Box 13.
Ah, he's innocent, huh?
Did you work on the case?
No, Inspector Rawlings handled it. Why?
But you know about it.
Sure. Yeah, I sometimes manage to know what's going on.
Look, Kling, you're a good detective. You've got brains.
I'll buy you malted milk sometime, but you didn't come here to hand me posies.
Do you believe Kirby's guilty?
Yes.
From the evidence?
That's what we base our cases on. It's inherent in the judicial and legal system. Now, what do you want from me? A new system?
I told you I saw Kirby. Kling, he doesn't act like a guilty man.
Oh, now, wait a second.
Who's this?
That's a photograph of Marion Oberling.
So, what am I supposed to do?
Look at her. Nice and sweet, isn't she?
I've never met her.
Oh, but I did. Butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. A smile that would soften up the Rock of Gibraltar. Talks like an angel. But she killed a kid to get 35 cents from him. Now, look, you've got a soft heart, Dan. But you've got a tendency to let it run right into your head.
Maybe you're right, Kling, but I promised Kirby I'd plug away until time was out. I like to keep promises.
And that's your business, Dan. But why did you come to me?
For any help you could give me?
Which adds up to a big zero.
Kling, I read the transcript of the trial. Kirby was the only suspect.
He had motive, opportunity.
So did Mrs. Roberts and William Morgan.
It was Kirby's gun that put Leslie Roberts in the obituaries.
Someone else could have used it.
So his defense lawyer said. But Kirby couldn't explain how it got into that sewer.
But Kirby called the police when he went to Roberts' house that night and saw Roberts dead.
Sure. We get dozens of cases where the killer tries to play smart. He calls the police, figuring it'll make him look good.
But he had to kill Roberts, run outside, throw the gun into the sewer, then go back inside and call the police.
So?
That's a big chance to take in case someone heard the shot and came to investigate.
Killers take chances, Dan.
Okay. Now, the paper said there was a note from Roberts asking Kirby to come to his house that night.
Yeah. That's why Kirby said he happened to go to Roberts' house that night. The only night in the week that Mrs. Roberts is always out.
The police said Kirby could have typed that note.
Right.
But Kirby's defense lawyer said Roberts could have typed it.
Look, you type a note to me, asking me to meet you. Then what do you do?
What do you mean, what do I do?
You write your signature 9 times out of 10. You don't type it.
So? That means anyone could have typed it.
I know. To get Kirby to Roberts' house.
That's it.
So that was all brought out at the trial. The jury saw it the way the prosecution summed it up. That Kirby typed that note to make it seem as though he was asked to Roberts' place.
But both Mrs. Roberts and Morgan also stood to gain by Roberts' death. Each gets $100,000.
Look, the case is closed. Too many things added up against Kirby.
Sometimes things can be added up wrong. Figures and facts.
You're knocking your head against a stone wall.
So I'll get a headache.
That's about all.
Okay, I'll carry aspirins with me. But, say, could I look at that note?
What for?
Just as a favor.
Okay, I'll take care of it for you. But I'll give you 6-2 and even that Martin Kirby will be executed tomorrow night at 11:30.
Well, Kling got me the note. So I had it, and so what? All it said was, Marty, be at my house tonight at 8:30. Less. It was typed and had been left in Kirby's typewriter at the office. Susie and I studied it.
What do you expect to get out of it, Mr. Holliday?
I don't know, Susie.
Gee, like you said, anybody could have typed it.
That's right. Kirby denies he did. Nobody can prove Roberts did or didn't. Not now.
Maybe that Mr. Morgan or Mrs. Roberts did.
Uh-huh.
Gee, what if either one of them did it, and they're letting an innocent man be executed? Oh, it wouldn't be a comfortable feeling.
Susie.
What's the matter? Did I say something?
Yeah. Maybe you did, Susie. Maybe you did.
What?
Conscience?
Whose?
Mrs. Roberts and Morgan's?
You mean both of them killed Mr. Roberts?
Give me that phone book.
Here it is.
Thanks. Roberts, Leslie Roberts.
What are you going to do, Mr. Holliday?
Play a little poker.
You're going to play cards at a time like this?
Not quite, just a bluff. I'm holding a pair of deuces.
I don't get it.
Hello?
Is this Miss Leslie Roberts?
Yes. Who's this?
Never mind, just listen. Tomorrow night at 11:30, just 24 hours from now, Martin Kirby will be executed for the murder of your husband.
Who are you? What do you want?
Does your conscience bother you, Mrs. Roberts?
What do you mean by that?
Don't you know, Mrs. Roberts?
Is this some kind of a stupid joke?
Hardly. They're not joking at the state penitentiary. Mrs. Roberts?
Yes?
I know something that can make you uncomfortable, but I'm willing to talk about it.
I don't know what you mean. You're either insane or completely without feeling.
If you're interested, meet me at the corner of Carpenter and Pastel Place at midnight.
And why should I do that?
That's for you to think about, but I think you know already. Now listen carefully. I'll be wearing a light tan topcoat, brown felt hat. I'll carry a leather briefcase. Goodbye.
Mr. Holliday, what was that for?
I told you. All I've got is a pair of deuces. Now, I'll make the same call to Morgan, but first, one to Kling.
I'm certainly bewildered.
Don't you ever change. You're wonderful as is.
What did I do?
Nothing at all. Susie, after I make this call to Kling and one to Morgan, I'll either have something to help Martin Kirby or
what?
Or a wonderful notice in the obituary column of the Star-Times.
And now back to Hunt and Peck, another Box 13 adventure with Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
I made the same phone call to William Morgan that I made to Mrs. Roberts. But I tipped Kling to something before I did. At midnight, I was at the corner of Carpenter and Pastel Place waiting. Sure, it was a bluff. But I figured all was fair in this game. 10 minutes went by, no one showed up. Then...
Got a light, Webb?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
It's all right.
It's a wonder they wouldn't put streetlights here. Guy could get lost easy.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for the light.
You're welcome.
Okay, Dick. See you tomorrow, then. Good night.
Maybe I played the wrong cards. Maybe no one would show up. It was 20 minutes past midnight. I stepped out of the shadows where I'd been standing. I felt pretty silly, and I knew what Kling would say. I was 20 feet away from the corner, walking slowly, looking up and down the street. There's no one in sight. The lights in the windows of the houses went out, slowly, one by one. I was 30 feet away from the corner when...
Dick, is that you?
Hey, there was somebody shooting!
Dan, where are you?
Right here, Kling.
You get it?
Yeah, on the arm.
Sergeant, get those people back. Keep them in their houses. Now tell Thompson to take a couple of boys and scour this neighborhood. Find the person who fired that shot.
Who Whoever it was is the one who should die in Martin Kirby's place.
You're an idiot. You set yourself up like a clay pigeon. How bad's the arm now?
It's not so deep as well or wide as a church door, but 'twill do.
How do you like this guy? He gets winged and quotes Shakespeare. Okay, let's get you out of here. Feel better?
Yeah, thanks.
What for?
Who fired the shot?
I don't know.
No luck?
Whoever it was in one of the buildings. And running somebody to ground in that neighborhood takes a squad of men.
Yeah, I was afraid of that.
Okay, so what have you got now? A bullet through your arm?
Playing Morgan is the real murderer of Leslie Roberts.
Why?
Mrs. Roberts reported my phone call to you, didn't she?
That's right.
But Morgan didn't.
I know that.
So he was afraid it was a blackmailer who knew he killed Roberts. He would have reported my call to you if he had nothing to be afraid of.
Sure. It looks good in your head. But what proof have you got that Morgan fired that shot tonight?
None. But on the strength of it, can't you get a stay of execution for Martin Kirby?
How? I call up and say you got shot. You think it was Morgan. Morgan denies it. No soap, Dan. To get a stay for Kirby, you need positive evidence.
And this hole in my arm doesn't count?
Only as a strike against you. And you're lucky at that.
What do I have to do?
If you could prove Morgan fired that shot, you'd have something. But what you'd have is that he fired at you. Not that he killed Roberts. Say so, swear out a warrant, and we'll bring him in.
No, don't do that. Let me ask you one more question.
What?
What do you think of the whole thing now?
Well,
Come on. What do you think?
I think you've got something, but the police haven't.
I was afraid of that. All right, Kling. Any objections if I keep going?
None for me, but you'll have to do it alone. As far as the department's concerned, the Roberts case is closed. I'd never get permission to work on it, Dan.
Not even on your own time?
That's different.
Okay. Keep in touch.
Yeah, I will. Meanwhile, you keep alive.
Well, there wasn't anything more I could do that night. Took my punctured arm and myself home and got some sleep. Not much, though, because I knew I was right and Kling was right. Only 2 people knew I'd be at Carpenter and Pastel at midnight. Morgan and Mrs. Roberts. Mrs. Roberts had called the police to report my call. Morgan hadn't. All Morgan had to do now was to lay low until Kirby was executed. But he had been worried enough to take a shot at me. Then I thought of something else. The next morning in my office...
Mr. Holliday?
Oh, good morning, Susie.
Your arm. It's in a sling.
It's becoming, isn't it?
What happened?
I was shot.
Oh, who shot you?
William Morgan, I'm sure. But never mind that now. I want you to help me.
Well, sure, Mr. Holliday, but I won't get shot, will I?
Here, sit down at the typewriter.
All right.
Now, look, I've typed out a bunch of slips with, "Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their party."
With one arm?
Good enough. Now, you do the same. Go ahead.
I don't understand.
I'll explain while you type. Go ahead.
Okay.
The note left for Martin Kirby was typed. What I'm trying to do is to find out if the style of typing can be definite enough to pin on one person.
You mean I type differently from you?
Mm-hmm. I use Hunt and Peck, and you use the touch system.
Oh.
You see, Mrs. Roberts used to be a secretary. She'd use the touch system of typing. Martin Kirby could type, and so could William Morgan.
Then what good will all this do you?
I don't know. Okay, Susie, that's enough. Now, mix up the slips and pick one at random. Then you tell me who typed it.
All right. I typed that one.
How do you know?
It's smoother than yours.
That the only way you can tell?
Uh-huh.
Oh. Then if I type touch system, it'd be pretty tough to tell the slips apart.
Oh, sure. All touch system is smooth looking. The letters are, they're all about the same blackness.
Okay, that's another lead shot.
Gee, I'm sorry, Mr. Holliday.
Look at that clock. 10 minutes past 12. Less than 12 hours left for Kirby. Susie, I'm as sure as I can be that Morgan's guilty. That he shot me last night.
Then why don't the police arrest him? It's dangerous for a man like that to be loose.
Yes, I think you're right, but Susie.
Uh-huh.
Remember what you said about conscience?
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, if Morgan was sure of himself, he wouldn't have tried that stunt last night. All right, because he did, it means that a little more work on him might make him break, huh?
You're not going to let him shoot at you again?
Oh, not if I can help it. But I am going to see him.
You will be careful, won't you, Mr. Holliday?
Susie, I have only one life to give my work. But it so happens I like it. It took the rest of the day, but I learned all I could about Mr. William Morgan. And there wasn't one thing that pointed at him as a killer. But I was sure he'd killed Roberts and framed Kirby. He knew Kirby and Roberts had quarreled. He could have taken Kirby's gun from Kirby's desk at the office. He could have typed the note leading Kirby to Roberts' house. And among other things, he had been a demonstrator for a typewriter concern. How did that help? Answer, not at all. Because Mrs. Roberts and Kirby both typed touch system. That I found out when I read the report of the trial. Okay, I had one angle left. Work on Morgan. Work on him hard enough to crack him wide open. If it could be done. So that night, 2 hours before Martin Kirby was to die, I buzzed at Morgan's house.
Yes? What is it?
Mr. William Morgan?
Yes. Who are you?
I'm a writer.
I have nothing to say. Excuse me. Get your foot away.
Oh, just a minute. Did you receive a phone call last night?
Come in.
Thank you.
What about a phone call?
Did you have one last night?
I don't know what you're talking about.
But you let me in when I mentioned it.
Sit down.
Okay.
You hurt your arm.
Yes, it got in the way.
You mentioned a phone call?
Yes, I did.
Cigarette?
No, thanks. That ashtray's awfully full. You must have been smoking a lot.
So what?
Nervous, Mr. Morgan?
Now, look here. I've had enough of this. What do you want? And who are you?
My name's Holliday. I called you last night.
That was a gruesome joke, Holliday. One I didn't appreciate at all.
I wasn't trying to amuse you, Morgan.
Why did you make that call?
Before I answer that, take a look at your clock.
Well, what about it?
In 1 hour and 50 minutes, Martin Kirby will be executed for a murder he didn't commit.
Why don't you say what you've come to say?
Because I'm waiting for you to say something.
You mean you'd like me to say something that would... Oh, no.
Why didn't you tell the police about that call last night? Big belly laugh, huh?
Yes, so the police know that you made that call.
Yes,
Oh, that wasn't very bright of you, Mr. Holliday. No blackmailer would have told the police he made that call. If you knew anything and were planning to trap me, you'd have kept it to yourself, right?
Morgan grinned at me. He knew I'd walked right into it. His nervousness seemed to just ooze away. He lighted another cigarette and kept grinning at me through the smoke. Then...
Don't you think you'd better leave now, Holliday?
Morgan, there was a note, typewritten. You typed it.
Did I?
Yes. Maybe you don't know this, but that note can put you in Kirby's place.
Yes? How?
Well, there's a way of telling who typed a note. Every typist has a different touch. And when enlarged, the touch of one typist will show up differently from another's. Kirby's defense lawyer missed that bet. But I didn't.
You talk a great deal too much, Holliday.
But it's interesting conversation, isn't
I don't
it?
believe what you said.
No? Here's the note. The police lent it to me, and...
Yeah, that's all, Holliday. Stay sitting.
You really wanted that note, didn't you?
And I've got it.
And that gun in your hand. It's the same one you shot me with last night.
And this time it won't be in the arm.
No, I suppose not.
Look, Holliday, it's almost 10. In about 1 hour and a half, Kirby will be executed. Now, you settle down and wait until 11:30.
What do you mean?
2 birds with 1 stone. Kirby and you. At 11:30. 11:25, Holliday. You and Kirby have 5 minutes.
You won't get away with it, Morgan.
Why not? If I kill you in my apartment, it'll be legal. Look.
What's that for?
Can't you guess? Papers scattered around, drawers ransacked. It's simple. I came in, surprised you rifling my apartment, and shot you. See?
With that gun?
Why not?
You know, I almost wish you would, Morgan. Because ballistics has the bullet taken from my arm, and if it matches the one that kills me tonight... You figure it out.
Why, you meddling fool. You'll be sorry.
Good work, Dan. And with one arm, too. You better stay where you are, Morgan.
Kling. Hey, Kling, the phone, the penitentiary.
Oh, I took care of that an hour ago.
You did what?
Sure. I heard the whole thing from outside the window.
But you said the case was closed. You couldn't work on it.
I've got news for you, Danny boy. I'm off duty.
You said nobody could tell the difference between typists.
That he did, Susie. And a bluff about the bullet.
Well, any bluff in a poker game, Kling. Oh, by the way, let me ask you one question.
Yeah? What?
Why did you hold off until the last minute?
Oh, I had time. Morgan wouldn't dare kill you until after Kirby was executed at 11:30. So I looked at my watch and I figured I had time to get to headquarters, pull strings to stop the execution, and get back to you.
Lieutenant Kling!
What, Susie?
Look at your watch. It's stopped.
Oh, that's nothing. It does that every once in a while. Just shake it and, Oh, holy cats.
Oh, no. Good night, Susie.
Next week, same time, through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd stars as Dan Holliday in Box 13. Box 13 is directed by Richard Sandville, with an original story by Robert M. Light, adapted for radio by Russell Hughes. Original music is composed and conducted by Rudy Schrager. The part of Susie is played by Sylvia Picker, and that of Lieutenant Kling by Edmund MacDonald. Production is supervised by Vern Karstensen. Box 13 is a Mayfair production from Hollywood. Watch for Alan Ladd in his latest Paramount picture.
Welcome back. This was one of the more interesting episodes, not so much for the mystery or the action, but just for the character interactions. This show really portrays a growth in the relationship between Dan and Lieutenant Kling. That's pretty marked from when the series began. I also thought that Susie came off better in this episode than she has in any other show in the series, in terms of really contributing to the plot. So this was a nice change up here. All right, well, we have got a few comments here. First one comes from the iTunes app review, who writes, thanks to whoever created this. If you like a good mystery, it doesn't get any better. And just some really nice supportive comments from Podcast Alley. I've been listening to The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio for a few months. It's a great podcast. Love the show, Adam, and all you do. Been listening about 6 months, and I think that this is the best. Well, thanks so much, and I appreciate your comments, and I encourage people to vote on Podcast Alley, whether they leave a comment or not. Comment from Facebook, where a number of people who like the page is exploding. We're up to 183 now, just one less than the Dragnet page. Madeline writes in, recently I found an episode of Rocky Jordan called The Makeup Man that was almost word for word the episode of Jeff Regan entitled The Lady with the Golden Hair, even down to Max Vladny's accent and voice. Were these two shows originally aired on the same network but at different times, and someone was desperate for a script? Thank you so much for the tip. I went ahead and I listened to The Makeup Man, and you're right. The show is very similar. I do think on Jeff Regan they had Hans Conried as Max Vladny, and he did a much better job. But other than that, it was pretty much the same script. And basically, the script had the same writer. E. Jack Newman wrote both scripts. And Newman recycled quite a few of his scripts. I've already mentioned that he took several of his scripts that he wrote for other shows, and those became 5-part Johnny Dollar episodes that he released under the pen name John Dawson. He was into recycling way before anyone else was. In this case, it was the same network. Both were CBS shows, but it really had to do with Newman. And I don't fault Newman a whole lot on this. In this case, because you only ran a show once, the odds were that even if someone who happened to listen to Jeff Regan in July of 1948 also happened to be listening to Rocky Jordan in May of 1949, they wouldn't probably make the connection. It's kind of hard to remember 10 months apart. And you do see script reuse, which can at times appear to be cheesy, but on the other hand, on most first-run shows today, more than half of the episodes are reruns. We'll have 22 weeks worth of new shows, and then about 28 weeks worth of rerun. Whereas on some of the old-time radio shows, you might have, 3 or 4 scripts a year that were reused from somewhere else. Plus, you have to say it took some talent by Newman. It was amazing how he transformed a script written about a private investigator in Los Angeles into a script about a restaurant owner in Cairo, Egypt. And by the way, since you sent me that, I went in and availed myself of the opportunity to listen to Rocky Jordan, and that's one I definitely want to do. It's got great stories. It's what Casablanca would have been like if they decided after the movie to make a post-war radio series where they had a detective series with Rick as the lead. It would be exactly like Rocky Jordan, except it'd be in Casablanca rather than Cairo. And the quality of the sound was just amazing. The set I found over at archive.org, all of them were 128 kbps quality, so those got a lot of tender loving care. So I'll look forward to bringing those to you. I listened to several of them. I'm going to include one. I'm not going to include the Makeup Man because you've already heard the basic plot. I'm going to include another episode for those of you who have the app or you've got the premium site. I'll let you take a peek at the episode of an episode of Rocky Jordan. This one is called Portrait of Rocky. Will be available for you to download. With this episode, those of you who have the app will see an asterisk by the description in case you forget. And if you'd like to get set up with the app, go to greatdetectives.net and you can click on the app purchase, or if you want to sign up for the premium site, just put a tip of $7 or more, and that will get you a year in the tip jar. Well, we kind of went a little long on this opening segment, so let's go ahead and we'll just get into today's episode of Jeff Regan, Cain and Abel and the Santa Maria.
My name's Jeff Regan. I get 10 a day in expenses from a detective bureau run by a guy named Lyon. Anthony J. Lyon. They call me the Lion's Eye.
With Jack Webb as Jeff Regan investigator, stand by for hard-boiled action and mystery and thrilling adventure in tonight's story of Cain and Abel and the Santa Maria.
This is the way it started. It was one of those cold, clammy mornings that the Chamber of Commerce doesn't like to have in print. I was in my place working on a 4-minute egg that tasted like a boiled golf ball when the phone began bouncing. I let it ring a while, and I got to thinking that it might be an old-fashioned girl who knew how to cook. It was the Lion. Hello, Regan talking.
This is me. I've been working all morning.
I'll buy you a time clock. Get to the point.
This is our lucky day. I just talked to Dun & Bradstreet.
How are they?
Now, don't be funny. We got a new client, and they tell me when the Treasury Department gets in trouble, they come to him.
Yeah?
The guy's name is Abel Roderick. Got a special from him an hour ago. He asked for a man, and I'm sending you, Regan.
You're sending me where?
His ranch. He raises horses.
Horses don't talk. What's bothering him?
Maybe it's his wife. Tell me she's got a pair of legs she'll never forget. He just said he wanted an operator out there by 12 o'clock.
You never learn, do you?
This means dough.
What else does it mean?
We'll go as far as homicide and arson when they got pockets as long as his.
Money all you ever think about?
Yeah, you learned something when you're as old as I am. That's all there is to think about.
Well, then get yourself another boy and start teaching him. I don't learn easy.
Now, just a minute. That's no attitude.
Taking somebody's check before you know who's who and what's what means trouble.
Jeffrey, please. You misunderstand me. I wouldn't jeopardize your bond or the good reputation of International by accepting an unreliable client.
Look, last week that guy had a record longer than a roll of ticker tape.
I've been with Harry Presidio all morning. He knows Abel Roderick.
Yeah.
He's the grandson of Gallant Roderick. His name used to be Rodriguez. One of our finest old California families. Jeffrey, he's a gentleman like yourself.
Oh, that's nice.
And he needs our assistance. Well?
All right, where is it?
Inland route between here and Santa Ana. Take Firestone.
Yeah?
Now, you run out there and see what Mr. Roderick wants. And, Jeffrey.
I know.
Call me, Jeffrey. Call me if you run into any trouble.
Well, when the lion hung up, he sounded as happy as a chorus girl with a new mink coat. Oh, he's a smart guy, I guess, but he uses check stubs for a telephone directory. Well, the home of Abel Roderick wasn't too hard to find. All I had to do was to get out on the highway and look for a hill. That's where it was. One of those old Spanish-type places with a block of porches, windows, and lots of iron grill work. Yeah, 20 years ago, it might have rated the good home section, but now you couldn't tell where the grass stopped and the weeds began. It's kind of used up and sad, like a derby winner with a broken leg. A tall blonde guy, about 30, in a black polo shirt, was stretched out on a beach chair in the front porch. He pulled off his dark glasses and watched me get out of the car and come up the steps. And he gave me one of those looks, like he was already tired of knowing me.
We don't want any.
How do you know?
We never want anything. Go away.
I'm here to see Abel Roderick. You him?
No.
But he lives here, doesn't he?
Yes. Who are you?
My name's Regan.
So?
I want to see him.
Go ahead. See him.
Everybody as nice as you.
Oh, I got a merit badge for being the nicest. What did you say your name was?
Regan.
What did you say you wanted to see him about?
I didn't say.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's too hot to play games, so I'll tell you. I don't like you and he won't like you.
Well, now, what am I supposed to do? Roll down the stairs?
It might help, baby.
Well, where'd you find him, Cain?
Janie, this is Mr. Regan. He came to see your husband. I guess he has business with him.
Hello, Mr. Regan. Is Abel expecting you?
At 12.
You're 10 minutes late.
Well, I'm still trying to see him.
He's in the study. Come on.
I'll see you later, Regan.
I thought I knew all of Abel's business acquaintances, but I don't remember you.
Oh, no, I'm a new one.
What do you do?
A lot of things.
You're very interesting, Mr. Regan.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be coming here often?
I don't know.
I hope so.
You keep your husband in a vault?
I'd like to. You're cute. Here we are. This is Abel's study. I guess he stepped out for a moment. Would a drink take off the rough edges?
Might.
Good. I'll make you one.
Okay. Where are the horses?
Horses? We gave that up a long time ago. We've given up a lot of things, Mr. Regan. Let's not worry about that. Here's the drink.
Thanks. That blonde boy out on the porch doesn't like me.
Okay. He doesn't like anybody. But let's not worry about him either.
You're crowding me.
Don't you like to be crowded?
All depends on whose wife is doing it.
You're worried about Abel?
I'm drinking his whiskey.
I've never had any complaints.
I don't see why you should.
What kind of a nasty crack is that?
You figure it, lady.
Mister, nobody talks to little Janie like that.
Hello, my dear. Introduce me to our visitor.
Oh, Abel. This is Mr. Regan, darling. He says he has business with you.
Regan? Oh, Regan. Yes, of course. How do you do, Mr. Regan? I'm Abel Roderick.
How are you?
I see Janie's made you comfortable with a drink, so we can get right down to business. Oh, Janie, my dear, why don't you ask Cain if he'd like to play some tennis?
You're not very subtle, darling, but I was just leaving.
That's a good girl.
I hope to see you again.
Don't let her worry you, Regan. It's an act.
Do I look worried?
She's lovely, and if you're young and tall and Janie's around, she adopts you.
I wasn't an orphan.
She'll be sulky all day now. Well, thanks for coming out. I hope you can help me.
Well, so far, I don't even know who's on the team.
A man in my alleged position is quite often the object of subterfuge. You can understand that.
Well, you mean because you got money, yeah.
To be quite frank, I have no money, Mr. Regan.
That's going to come as a shock to somebody I know.
Who?
Never mind, go on.
It's my grandfather, Gallant Roderick. He controls all of the wealth in this family.
You his front man?
The eldest son of a son. And I live in this deplorable old shack waiting for grandfather to die.
How long you been waiting?
Too long, Mr. Regan. But I'm past 40 now. I don't know how to do anything else, so I continue to wait. Along with my devoted brother, Cain, who has the same thing to look forward to.
Yeah, I met him.
If you think he's bad, you should meet my grandfather. He fitted us with these charming names, Cain and Abel.
Well, what's all this got to do with me?
Here. Look at these. 2 little ships of silver. Perfect replicas of the Pinta and Nina, named after Columbus's fleet.
Yeah, you can't buy stuff like that anymore. Not even on a time plan.
Hardly. 20 years' work on the part of an ancient silversmith in Madrid. And a prized possession of the Rodriguez family for 7 generations. My great-great-great-grandmother wore them on her wedding dress.
Where's the other one?
You've guessed it, Mr. Regan. The Santa Maria is missing. Janie wore it to Ciro's night before last.
She lose it?
Nothing so simple. It was stolen.
How?
Oh, she was with Cain. It was late when they got back. A masked man stopped their car on the turnoff. According to Janie, he was very polite, merely removed the Santa Maria, took nothing else.
What about Cain?
He was passed out. Janie was driving. Regan, the usual thing is for me to get a telephone call and have an opportunity to buy it back. Isn't that right?
Well, a heist job usually works that way, yeah.
Well, I haven't been contacted. I'm getting worried.
What does your insurance company say?
My grandfather owns the insurance company. I've told no one but you.
You don't want him to know about it, huh?
Well, he might cut me off if he thinks I've been careless. Well, what do you advise me to do?
Wait for that phone call and buy it back.
I'm willing to buy it back, but the truth of the matter is grandfather will be in from the east this week. And the first thing he does when he comes out here is ask to see those ships.
Well, now, look, whoever pulled the job couldn't unload a thing like that without being caught. And if he melted it down, he'd be lucky to get $50. He's as bad off as you are.
Do you think you could hurry it up?
Well, I know a couple of people.
Then you'll try and contact them for me.
I'll do what I can.
Oh, thank you, Regan. Now we just sit back and wait for my ship to come in. Bad joke, huh?
I left him sitting there in that big room. He looked about as happy as a St. Bernard with a stomachache. Well, he'd have probably felt worse if he'd have been outside on the porch. Janie was there with his brother, only they didn't hear me. Well, maybe they were just checking each other for broken ribs. I didn't bother to ask. Out on the highway, about a mile from the place, a 49 Nash picked me up. I turned off a couple of times on those little roads to make sure, but he stuck with me. Once he got real close, but he was wearing dark glasses and a straw hat, and could have been Whistler's mother for all I knew. When I pulled into the lot by our building about 3 o'clock, he drifted along with the Broadway traffic. I took his license number, and then I backed out and drove over to 3500 Hope Street.
So I said, Red Light, go see my friend Moriarty.
Okay, buddy, well, let's see.
I want to trace a license number.
Accident?
No.
Oh, damn, huh? Try with the 11.
Thanks.
Next.
I want to know who's registered for these plates right here.
4E7542. This year?
Yeah. I'm a private detective. I think it might be connected with a case.
Yeah. Makes you think that.
Well, the car followed me this afternoon.
Yeah.
Just tell me who owns it, will you?
Then what?
Well, then I'm going to write you a letter.
I don't collect stamps.
You worked here too long, lady.
You telling me. 6 years I collected fines A through G. Now I'm doing this. Thanks, huh?
Who does the car belong to?
I gotta look. A lot of cars in Los Angeles. Thousands of cars. Mad Months would blow his brains out if he knew just how many cars there really are around this town. Well, Ruby DeRoy knows, mister, and don't you forget it. 4E7542 belongs to a guy named Richard I. Chambers.
Address?
Hotel De Soto.
Thanks.
Come back anytime, doll. Glad to help you out.
Richard I. Chambers meant about as much to me as a shipload of stale bread, but it didn't take 20/20 vision to see that there was a connection. And the whole thing was phony. It was like cutting your leg off to cure your bunions. Well, I went back to the office and checked with the Lion.
Okay, Regan, give it to me.
It's a heist, one of the family heirlooms.
Meat. When was it lifted?
2 nights ago.
Any contacts yet?
No, none. That's why it's screwy.
What do you mean, screwy?
Well, it was a little silver ship called the Santa Maria. Now, they'd have to sell it back to Roderick or go on release.
Where does that leave us?
With another bum case.
Now, don't say a thing like that.
Well, your dope on Roderick was secondhand.
Tell me.
His grandfather keeps the keys.
How do you know?
Roderick said so.
You shouldn't let out family secrets. Now, you let me worry about that. Just find his little ship.
Yeah.
Guy called a half hour ago, left the number for you.
Chambers?
Yeah, who told you?
You did.
Want you to phone him.
Never mind, skip that. I know where to get him. Things began to move. That meant that all the cards were out and somebody was asking for bets. Over at the DeSoto Hotel, the clerk told me that 305 belonged to Chambers. He was a little guy, about a head shorter than Margaret O'Brien. He shoved 3 inches of nose out at me through a crack in the door.
Well, I left word for you to phone.
You, Chambers?
I was having a beauty nap. Come back in an hour, will
you need it. Look out!
Hey, what is this? Oh, tough guy, yeah? All right, you're tough. I think you're a bum.
All right, simmer down, Junior. You'll never make Eagle Scout.
Oh, you're so good, I gotta take that from you, huh?
We're gonna talk.
What makes you think so?
Everybody's grown up now.
Dickie Chambers talks when he feels like talking.
All right, Squirt, have it your way.
Hey, that kind of stuff ain't going to get you nothing, Regan.
Your weight's up, Dickie. You got a different job now.
Said you're a bum.
You tell me today.
Ask your mother.
What you want me to phone about?
Wrong track, Gumshoe. The $2 lender's downstairs.
You're in this somewhere, and I want to know where.
You through being tough, Regan?
No. I'll let the boys in the personnel division handle you.
What do you mean?
That shiv on your dress is about an inch too long to be legal.
Call him. See where it gets you.
I'll send you a nickel later.
Okay, I'll open. Just that I don't like to get shoved around, that's all.
Why didn't you figure that before you got tangled up?
I'm your contact.
All right, come on, let's put the show on the road. How much does it cost?
$5,000 and 10s and 20s.
Go on.
Tonight, 10 o'clock. You come with him.
Where?
Mile this side of Santa Ana Airport. Little road turns left off 101. Drive 2 miles and park.
And then what?
Well, if you got the $5,000, you don't try anything funny. He gets his little silver ship back.
That it?
That's it, Peeper. Happy?
See you later, Dickie.
Oh, I'm checking out tomorrow.
Hey, look, Buster, you aren't any heist man. They come smoother. What's your angle?
Maybe I love jewelry. You care if maybe I love jewelry.
I don't. A guy like you's got to love something. I called Roderick and told him what I'd found out. He sounded relieved, like he'd been underwater for a long time and was just coming up for air. He said he'd get the cash, and I made arrangements to meet him at his place later on. Then I called the Lion and told him. After that, I stopped off at a place on Wilshire, and I ran up a tab watching a skinny guy trying to make a piano sound like a symphony orchestra. Well, I had some steak and potatoes, and then I drove back out to Roderick's place. It was about 9 o'clock when I got there, and the same people were on the front porch doing the same thing. I remembered what the Lion had said about those legs of hers.
Oh, Joe.
Having fun?
Oh, Regan, huh? I thought I told you we didn't want any.
That was 8 hours ago.
We still don't want any.
I'm still here to see your brother.
Small business?
Something like that.
I don't like you any more now than I did this morning, and I hated you then.
Yeah, well, I'm going to cry about that when I get home.
You're pretty smart, aren't you, Regan?
Cain, please be careful.
He's awful smart.
Cain.
Let me go.
Yeah, let him go, lady. I'll give him back.
Now, I'll show you trying to spy on people, huh? I'm going to give you something, people.
He's been drinking. Now, look out.
Look out, nothing. Go on. Oh!
Well, I guess he deserved that. He's nasty when he works at it.
How was the other time?
There aren't any other times.
Too bad.
Maybe he'll be different when he wakes up. What do you mean about the liquor?
Skip it.
You're getting the wrong idea about everything.
What do you care?
I was a hat check girl in a cheap nightclub.
What's going on out here, Janie? Oh, Regan, you're here. What was he acting up about tonight?
Mr. Regan.
Well, it doesn't make any difference. Take care of him, will you, Janie?
Of course, Abel.
That's a good girl, Janie. Well, you all ready, Regan?
You got it?
All set. I'll be home early, Janie. Come on, Regan. Let's go.
Well, we climbed in my car. We drove to the place Dickie Chambers told me about. It wasn't hard to find. It was a flat dirt road to the edge of the airport. We clicked off 2 miles on the speedometer, and we switched off our lights and parked. It was dark and quiet there, like the inside of an empty barrel. Roderick didn't have much to say. He just sat there chewing on a cigar and looking at nothing. He was real good at waiting. I looked at my watch about 3 minutes to 10, then I saw the headlights of another car coming down the road from a long way off. Roderick nodded his head, and I began to have a feeling like I was standing on top of the trap, and the warden had just smiled at the hangman.
That must be ours, Regan. Do you think we should switch on our headlights? They may not see us.
Well, unless they got wings, they got to pass us.
They don't seem to be slowing down much, do they?
Well, get out of the car.
What?
Get out of the car.
Say, what is
Don't
this?
talk. Move.
Oh, all right, all right. What's got into you, Regan?
Come on.
Well, we can't just... Well, them think something's
Look,
wrong.
this is a packed deck. You're a ringer.
I'm not sure
Spun him around and he fell against the car. I pulled out my gun, but it didn't do any good. Whoever it was must have been in vaudeville. That was the fastest disappearing act since Houdini.
You are listening to the story of Cain and Abel and the Santa Maria, tonight's adventure with Jeff Regan, investigator. If you are a graduate nurse between the ages of 21 and 45, you may be eligible for a commission in the Regular Officers Reserve Army Nurse Corps. If you are eligible and meet the high standards to qualify to serve with this fine organization, you may elect active or inactive status. In addition to this privilege, they also have the opportunity to take advantage of special training courses. So if you believe that you qualify for a commission in the Army Nurse Corps Reserve, apply now to the Adjutant General's Office, Washington, D.C. That's the Adjutant General, Washington, D.C. And now, back to the story of Cain and Abel and the Santa Maria and Jeff Regan, investigator.
Well, there was enough loose lead around there to start a scrap drive. Whoever it was wanted to make real sure. My car was as full of holes as a canceled check. I found a .45 slug in the seat packing, and I piled Roderick inside, and I drove over to a motor court on the highway. An old lady with a dust mop for a head of hair registered us and complained about all the drunks there were in this world. And then when I got rid of her, I went out to the phone booth and gave the lion a ring. I woke him up.
It's 11 o'clock at night. What do you want?
I'm in a jam.
You're always in a jam. Tell me about it in the morning.
Look, I'm giving it to you right now.
You drunk.
I've been with your client trying to get that ship back.
How'd you do?
I got lead instead of silver.
What do you mean by that?
Somebody doesn't like Roderick.
Who is it?
I don't know. We got there for the buyback and somebody opened up.
They can't do that.
Well, they did.
Oh, where's Roderick now?
With me. Get a doctor and come on over.
What?
He got in the way when they started the 4th of July.
Well, take him to a hospital.
Now, look, Fatso, he isn't hurt bad, but he needs help. You're always talking about money, now here's your chance to make some.
Yeah?
He'll give you a bonus if you keep him out of the papers.
I'll be there in half an hour.
Well, the lion showed up 20 minutes later. He had a long-faced guy with him who said he was a doctor. He looked more like an undertaker, but I didn't argue. I told the lion to keep Roderick there till I phoned back. Then I beat it over to the DeSoto Hotel. The door to 305 was open. Dickie Chambers had company, only he wasn't receiving. He was lying under his sheet. A fat guy in a wrinkled suit seemed to be running things.
Come on in, brother. I didn't know Dickie had any friends.
I guess he didn't.
Who are you?
I'm a guy who met him once. Who are you?
Ed Granger, constable. This is my territory. What's your name?
Regan, private investigator.
International?
Mm-hmm.
The Lion's Eye, huh? Know anything about this?
Well, I talked to him this afternoon. He gave up riding horses for other things.
What kind of things?
He was contact man on a heist job.
Yeah? Where do you come in?
I was hired. That's why I met Dickie.
Mind telling me by who?
It's a client, Granger.
This is a murder. Okay, well, better go for now.
When'd you find him?
A little while ago, clerk called, said he heard shooting. I came down with the boys and found Dickie doing the long sleep. Happened less than an hour ago.
He's a tough little guy.
Well, them 45s don't know nothing about that.
45?
Big holes, chest and neck, close range. Corner's gonna lose 2 bits. He thinks it's a 38. Yeah.
Well, look, if it turns out big, try this one for a match. Here.
Oh, you've been playing games tonight?
Somebody gave it to me.
Connected?
Ballistics will tell you.
Anything else?
No.
What'd you come back for?
Talked to Dickie.
No good, huh?
No good. I should have asked him earlier.
We can get you through International.
Yeah.
Well, if you got anything, remember the name. Ed Granger.
He was peeking under that sheet looking at Chambers when I left. There was kind of a sad smile on his face, like somebody put gasoline in his thermos bottle. I drifted across the street for a package of cigarettes, and then I came back and climbed in my car thinking about the whole thing. I don't know how long I sat there in the car, but when I looked up, there was a shadow against the wall of the building. It was a good-looking shadow.
Doing your homework?
Yeah, I do for a diploma.
Congratulations. What would you like for a gift?
How about a little silver ship, huh?
Sorry, too expensive. Try again.
All right, give me a 45.
What would you do with that?
Give it to a cop named Granger.
Then what?
I go home and go to bed.
You haven't asked me what I'm doing here.
I know.
Cain?
Him, too?
He isn't so bad when you get to know him.
From where you're sitting, he must have wings.
Well, if it isn't the gum heel, you ready for a laugh?
What do we got, a comedy?
Take a look, Janie. Okay, bright boy, where is he?
You sober enough to shoot straight?
I took the pledge.
Before or after you came by us out on that road?
After, baby.
You don't smell like it.
Where is he?
Try my car trunk. I'm using him for ballast.
What did you do with him, Regan?
Cain, there's some people coming. Has he told you what he did with Abel?
Not yet.
I'm going to have to talk to him somewhere else.
Right, Angel. Okay, Regan, come on, get out. Hurry up. Now turn around.
Let me guess what's coming.
It's a trip to the moon. Sit tight, baby. Here you go. Oh!
I settled down to having a headache. Then the headache went someplace, and I had nothing. Oh, it was a nice play. Everybody was a quarterback, and everybody had the ball. I looked as good as a fat girl in a French bathing suit. It was some time later, maybe 10 years. I had a mouthful of brandy, and my throat was burning like an oil stacker. We were in Roderick's place. He was standing over me, holding a bottle in one hand and a 45 in the other.
Coming around now. Got to work fast.
Don't worry, he'll talk. Feeling better, baby? Well, you're gonna feel worse. Now sit up, baby. Come on, it's time to talk.
Now, wait a minute, Cain. Wait. Let me ask him. We're all alone here. No one's going to disturb us. And we'll find out anyhow. Why don't you tell us what you did with him?
I got a short memory. I forget things.
It's a shame to let Cain do this to you. I think you're pretty. Might not be able to stop him once he gets started.
Well, it's your idea, lady. I'm along for the view.
Iron men went out with short skirts, but I guess you don't know it yet.
You look tough, brother, but you bruise easy.
You're already wearing striped pants. You mangled it when you tagged me tonight.
Think so? Tell me how.
All right. No one knew I was a detective but your brother. That meant you hired Dickie Chambers to find out.
So you know it. So what?
So you bumped Dickie when you thought it was finished.
Well, that makes you know I'm not kidding.
There's a constable named Granger.
Cain?
Relax, Angel, relax. Don't let him scare you. He hasn't told anything to anybody.
No?
No. If you did, we would have found him in a hospital. I saw him go down.
Are you sure?
Of course I am. Now all we got to do is find him. So let's get started. You talk now, huh? No? It's going to get worse, baby. You might have to write it later.
You got hold of a bad label.
Stop it. Now, stop it. This isn't getting us anything.
Yeah, but I'm having fun.
No, kill him.
Let go of my
Listen
arm.
to me. Now, we need him. I've got to find him in the car with Abel. It's ruined if you kill him.
I said let go. Now, where were we, baby?
I said to stop it.
Huh?
Stand away from him.
Are you crazy or something?
We're fine if you could think. But you can't think. You're no good to me anymore.
Janie.
He shook all over a couple of times like he was saying no in a big way. And then he finally relaxed. She knelt down and took something out of his pocket. I tried to lift one of my arms, but I got about as far as I would trying to hook a whale with a salad fork. I must have looked real bad, because all of a sudden her eyes kind of lit up and she came over.
You've taken a lot of punishment, mister.
Yeah, not as much as you're going to take.
It's a matter of opinion. By the way, you didn't happen to be carrying that $5,000.
You looking for a stake?
Yeah? I'm going out prospecting.
Trip around the world?
Far enough to make some new connections. That's all a girl needs. Here's the little ship. You didn't do it for nothing.
You run out of bullets?
No. If they ever get me, I'll say justifiable homicide. was trying to kill you. You're my witness. Oh, you are pretty. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.
Take care of yourself. Goodbye. That's all she said, and that was the last I ever saw of her. Well, it seems that Janie and Cain had figured to tag both of us out on that road, and it'd all be blamed on a phony heist gang. There was a lot of insurance they could have turned into ready cash, but I had a feeling that when I made Abel get out of that car that night, it'd ruin things for him. Janie and Cain thought that they could still do it if they could find him and get us together again. That's why he went to work on me. Cain already killed Dickie Chambers because he thought there might have been a double cross, and I guess he was kind of crazy by the time he got around to me. Well, anyway, about 3 months later, a detective sergeant down in Miami Beach spotted Janie one night working the hat stand in a nightclub. Everybody wondered how he could recognize her. She dyed her hair, and it really changed her appearance. But it figured. You see, the police folder had a picture of her in a bathing suit, and she couldn't change those legs.
Jack Webb is featured as Jeff Regan, with Wilms Herbert as Anthony J. Lyons. It's CBS at 9:30 next week for more hard-boiled action and mystery with Jeff Regan, Investigator, written by E. Jack Newman, produced by Sterling Tracy. The role of Janie Broderick was played by Lorene Tuttle. Marvin Miller was Abel, and Wally Mayer was Cain. Dickie Chambers was Sidney Miller, and Paul Frees played Ed Granger. Are you a graduate registered nurse? Do you know someone who is? Then please listen carefully to this important message from the Adjutant General's Office, Washington, D.C. 29,000 nurses are needed to join the new Army Nurse Corps Reserve. For the first time in history, qualified nurses are given the opportunity of receiving a commission in the regular Army Reserve. All nurses who receive reserve commissions will benefit from the opportunity for specialized training offered to them by the Army. Don't wait. If you're a registered graduate nurse between the ages of 21 and 45, drop a card for complete information to the Adjutant General, Washington, D.C. Original music for this program is by Dick Arant. Jeff Regan, Investigator, is heard every Saturday at 9:30 over CBS. Bob Stevenson speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Now, this is unique. We get to a couple things happen in this episode. Number one, I didn't hear anybody say pilgrim, so I missed that, and hopefully we'll rekindle that tradition. But the client lived and isn't going to jail, and that's pretty unique for this show. Marvin Miller was absolutely did a great performance as Cain here. It was somewhat scary, but well done by Marvin Miller. The whole fight scene, and they had one of these in Pat Novak, was disturbingly realistic, and in some ways, without the having to reproduce the visual element, you can make. I think you can make a more realistic impression on your listener. I know that there have been some episodes, say, of Mystery Science Theater 3000, where they would make fun of poorly done fight scenes. I don't think anyone would be making fun of that. They might make fun of the conclusion, but I don't. But nobody said that this was Dragnet here, so even if it has Jack Webb. I realized that I have not yet posted audio of Pursuit, a show I announced last week we were going to do. So we're going to do it with today's episode. So those of you with the app will have a bonus in there. It is an unhosted episode of Pursuit. And same thing for folks on the premium website with the premium subscription. For those of you who do have the premium site, we have 5 unhosted episodes we downloaded in April, or uploaded in April. Please download all the April unhosted episodes by the end of May, because we'll delete those off the server. They're just kind of sneak previews of shows that we'll be doing. So download those if you want to hear them before the end of the month. I want to encourage you, before we get started, to check out our web host, One-on-One, the world's #1 web host. Go to greatdetectives.net, click on the hosting link in the sidebar, or go to hosting.greatdetectives.net. I have several great plans, including the beginner. Anyway, Andrew says, just drop in a line to say great job. Well, thanks so much, Andrew, and we will be back on Thursday. And next week with another episode of Let George Do It. In the meantime, though, got any comments? Email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Go to greatdetectives.net to learn more. It's time for The Hearst Was Painted Pink here on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. The Hearst Was Painted Pink, another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice, danger's my stock and trade. If you're up a blind alley and nobody can help you, give yourself another chance and call on me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear Mr. Valentine, how much do you charge for making a play for a beautiful dame? There's more to it than that. I may add the lady is dynamite. I may also add that the money is going to be okay. Also this, if everything works out, you'll be helping a lot of people out of that blind alley you mentioned in your ad. If you happen to be interested, let's talk.
Happen to be interested? Let's talk it over. I'm in room 918, Hotel Somerset. The name is yours truly, J.C. Collins. Oh, Brooksy's never going to forgive herself for being late this morning. Me, Angel. What goes with you this morning?
Oh, it's you, George.
Oh, shucks, you guessed.
I guess I overslept. But we were out so late last night on the McMillan job.
Well, just stay right where you are, Angel. I just wanted you to know where I was going to be.
Where's that, George?
Oh, just having a chat with one J.C. Collins at the Hotel Somerset. Yeah, it seems we have a very distasteful assignment, Brooksy. I have to go out and make love to a beautiful dame, it says here.
George, I'm on my way down to the office right
What's
now.
more, it says here she's dynamite.
I'm getting into something right now, George. It won't take me.
Hold it, Brooksy. Take it easy. Let me see what this is all about, and I'll talk to you later.
Did you hear that, Raymond? This guy thinks there's actual J.C. Collins.
That was the general impression we tried to create in that letter, Ernie.
Sit down, sit, Valentine.
Hey, now look, I'm not a country cousin who just got in yesterday. I don't work for guys like you, Gorman.
That's what you think.
As far as anyone's concerned, you'll just be working for J.C. Collins. Oh, be smart.
As far as I'm concerned, I'd be working for a grade A rat. And Raymond, that's never smart.
Don't get up, Valentine. You're not going nowhere.
I know I can take your word for that, Gorman. So I'll just listen.
Yeah, well, I'll give it to you straight. There's another guy in this town. I mean, the town's not big enough for both of us, and consequently...
well?
Words. I got no use for words. Tell them what I mean, Raymond.
Well, it's really very simple. As you know, Mr. Gorman owns a lot of property, including this hotel. He also has a great many business interests.
Yeah, don't I?
Yeah, I know. Some narrow-minded people call them rackets.
Let's not be irrelevant. Anyway, it seems another businessman, Frank Granby by name, aspires to supplant Mr. Gorman in his various enterprises.
Granby? I thought he was mistaken for a clay pigeon the other night.
Oh, that was no mistake, but it was embarrassingly bad marksmanship. Frank was wounded, but he got away, and now he's hiding somewhere. And he must be smoked out.
Yeah, and fast.
Look, fellas, I know confession is good for the soul, but why pick on me? How did you know I won't leave here and reiterate some of these little intimacies?
What? What do you say, Raymond?
Well, not to oversimplify, Mr. Valentine doesn't want to play ball.
Tell him what I mean.
What Ernie means is...
Yeah?
You can help us smoke out Granby. Ernie's very basic in his thinking about these things, but I believe he's got something.
Not to be precocious, I gather this has something to do with the beautiful dame who's also dynamite.
Lila Parker. Sings at the Glass Hat. Yeah, Granby is nuts about her. If he thought she was playing around, he'd go on and tell him what I mean, Raymond.
Oh, the luxuries of life. Someone to translate your English for you.
What?
He's just being sarcastic, Ernie. But you're right about the dame, Valentine. Personally, I'd envy you this job if I didn't know Granby cares more for her than he does for his own life.
You're going to make a play for her, Valentine. More than that, she's going to... Raymond...
More than that, you've got to make her like it.
Sorry, boys, no deal.
You got no choice. Raymond, call that number.
Right, Ernie.
Maybe Valentine will get what we're driving at.
Here, Valentine, you take this.
Huh?
Hello?
Brooksy.
Well, who else would you call this number? Where are you, darling? Hey, what's this about?
Skip it, Angel. I'll talk to you later.
You get what I mean?
George, where are you?
Careful what you say.
Just wanted to tell you not to worry if I'm away a couple of days on this job. I know I can leave everything to you, Brooksy.
Well, of course
That's
you can.
all I can tell you right now, Angel. So long. All right, Raymond, you're not so good at translating. Just what does Gorman know?
Ernie, make him let me go.
Hey, well, you got no choice. Let go of him, Valentine. You see, Valentine, Miss Brooks is our insurance that you do just like I say. Now, go on, Raymond, tell him.
Brooks, you've heard of hardened criminals, haven't you?
Yes, Lieutenant Riley, but what does this have to do with George?
Well, I'm a hardened cop. I only deal in facts.
Well, I've been giving you facts.
I know. You didn't like the way Valentine sounded on the phone.
He called the office and seemed so surprised when I answered the phone.
Well, so what? Sometimes I forget what number I'm calling.
Well, he sounded so strange when he said that was all he could tell me, and then he hung up.
Oh, look. Are you sure it isn't this business about a beautiful dame that's getting you so excited?
Oh, don't be ridiculous. I know George.
So does Mrs. Riley know me, but even she has her doubts sometimes.
Can't you see I'm serious? I even went to the hotel. There was no J.C. Collins ever registered at the Somerset. Who sent George that letter?
And now, look, Miss Brooks, I keep fighting back the impulse, but I like that guy of yours.
Me too.
Well, still, I'm a public servant, and I can't go flouncing around after him every time he gets himself into trouble.
Well, I'm going to do some flouncing around, Lieutenant.
That I know, and I can expect the worst.
Well, Lieutenant, if that's all you have to say,
just a minute.
Yes?
If Valentine is really in some kind of trouble, I'll leave word here where you can reach me day or night.
Mr. Valentine?
Yeah.
Gus, the piano player, told me you wanted to see me.
That's right, Miss Parker. Won't you sit down?
Gus said you were one of my greatest admirers. For singing, no doubt.
Singing? Well, that never occurred to me.
That's a new approach. I think I will sit down. Mr. Valentine, it isn't my singing. Just what is it about me that you admire so much?
Well, don't you know?
Yeah. I've known since I was 14.
You're one of the few women who'll be hearing that when you're 40.
Is that supposed to be so good?
May I order you something?
I'm happy the way I am. What do you want?
Oh, I'm just a lonely guy feeling sorry for myself in a strange town.
Same line, but I can't say I've heard it read any better.
What are you doing after your last show?
Going home and rinse out a few things?
I'll be waiting for you in the parking lot when you're through.
You can grow an awful long beard waiting for somebody who isn't going to show up.
Often wondered how I'd look with a beard.
Listen, mister, and listen carefully. Why don't you be good to yourself and go home?
And hate myself for the rest of my days?
All right, I know I look like something in a pastry window shop to
thought
you.
of it that way. That's very good.
Believe me, I'm poisoned. And it won't do a thing for my ego if you hang around and prove I'm right. Now stay away from me.
See you later, Lila. You'll recognize me by my beard. I'm afraid you picked yourself the wrong boy, gentlemen. The fair Lila seems particularly allergic to me.
What? What do you say, Raymond?
They don't get along together, honey.
Don't give me that, Valentine. You're a pretty good-looking guy, and Lila, she isn't used to being lonely.
Just keep trying, Valentine. The sooner Frank Granby finds out you have designs on Lila, the sooner this unpleasant little job will be over.
Well, I do have a sort of one-sided date to meet her here later in the parking lot.
You see, Raymond, he's doing okay. But don't try to play cute, Valentine. There'll be somebody watching you every minute. There'll be... Tell him what I mean, Raymond.
I think he knows what you mean.
Gorman, as you've said several times, I don't have any choice. I have to play the game your way because you have all the cards.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But look, if anything happens to Miss Brooks, you better make sure I'm dead first. Because I'm going to be out looking for you. I bet you didn't think I was going to be here, Lila.
How much do you want to bet?
Oh, let's say an old Dick Tracy button.
Move over. How'd you know this was my car?
The parking lot attendant said this pink convertible dreamboat belonged to you.
Oh.
Where do we go from here?
You're only hitchhiking, mister. You've got to take your chances.
Okay, fair enough.
I can give you this much of a hint before we start.
Well, that's a pretty good start in any man's language, Lila. But why the sudden change of heart?
Suppose we say I'm curious about a man who's so willing to take poison.
Hey, look, maybe I'm only a hitchhiker, Lila, but you're going over 75 now.
I'll be doing faster than that if you don't answer my question.
Well, how do you know anybody hired me to make a play for you?
All right, it won't be any loss if we both go off the road.
Now, wait a minute. Take it easy, Lila.
Was it Gorman? Why don't you answer?
What are you talking about?
You don't have to answer. So it is Gorman. Now I know.
Lila!
Oh, this is going to be just fine.
Yeah, what's that supposed to mean?
Exactly where are we, George?
Across the road from a gas station you almost didn't miss.
I mean, exactly where does this whole mess leave us?
Why don't you tell me?
All right. You and I are going to make sure Frank thinks he's got everything to be jealous of.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in love with a man?
Gorman wants to make Frank show himself so he can kill him. I want to know where Frank is so I can save him.
What?
I know what happened the other night. He's somewhere hurt, wounded, maybe dying.
Oh, great. That gives me a very cozy feeling. Like walking around with a target on my back and another one on the front. Who's going to get me first, Frank or Gorman?
There's a risk in everything. It's a gamble whether you live or not the moment you're born.
Well, before you get too philosophical, Ella, maybe I can sneak in a phone call from the station.
But it's closed.
There might be a booth in the back. Maybe there's a way to get both of us out of this jam.
What makes you such an optimist, George?
Let me have police headquarters. Lieutenant Riley in homicide. That's right. Yeah, I'll wait. Oh, sorry. Look, mister, you'll
Better
have to...
hang up, Valentine. I think you've got the wrong number. Well, I'm glad you know how to take advice.
You make it very easy, Raymond. You insist on pointing a gun at people.
Come on out, Valentine.
Oh, just wouldn't be an act without you, eh, Gorman?
You're too smart, Valentine. You're too... Tell him what I mean, Raymond.
Oh, you...
And to think words were unnecessary.
That's right, Raymond. Wake him over. But don't let it show. We have to keep him nice and pretty for Miss Parker.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Meanwhile, here are some interesting figures. Did you know that the Navy calls its 5-inch gun the workhorse of the Navy, and that this gun has to be relined after firing about 2,000 times? But that's nothing compared to the work done by spark plugs in your car. They have to fire more than 1 million times in every 1,000 miles. And if you've driven 10,000 miles, those spark plugs have fired 15 million times in white-hot temperatures. Dirty, cracked, or chipped plugs are often the cause of hard starting, lagging in traffic, waste of gasoline and power. So if your car has gone 10,000 miles without a new set of spark plugs, better ask for a set of Atlas Champions tomorrow. The accurate timing and full flashing sparking of quality Atlas Champions repay their cost many times over in superior car performance. Ask for them at an independent Chevron gas station or a standard station where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. And now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine, and here's the situation. You're promised a fat fee to romance a beautiful nightclub singer named Lila. Very pleasant assignment, if you didn't find out that Lila is a decoy in a gun-happy feud between two racketeers. Yes, and that their insurance against you making a single wrong move is the girl you happen to love. That's why, like George Valentine, you pick your words carefully now as you talk to Lila.
You know we're being watched, don't you, Lila?
That character over at the bar makes it pretty obvious.
What do you say we give him his money's worth? You're supposed to find me very fascinating.
I'm doing all right. In a quiet sort of way. At least he thinks so. Frank ever saw me look at another man like this. Drive him crazy.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
If he ever saw me light a cigarette like this. Take the first puff and give it to you to smoke like this.
What then?
It would be murder, darling. How are we doing?
I don't know. But I can see how you can lose an awful lot of ground this way.
You still haven't told me why you're working for Gorman. Before you answer, try to look romantic. It's expected of us.
I'm in this thing for love's sweet sake, Lila, just like you are. So what do you say we leave it that way?
George, I've got to find out where Frank is so I can help him.
Gorman wants Frank to come out, too, only he wants to kill him.
Have you got an answer?
No, not much of a one. But it may be worth playing.
Why don't you, then?
All right, here we go. Oh! That was very clumsy of me, Lila. I'm awfully sorry. Oh, waiter.
It's nothing, George. Just a little water.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will you take care of this, please, waiter?
Of course, right away. It'll only take a minute.
Well, you shouldn't dismiss a minute like that, friend. It's 60 seconds long. You can get a lot done in that time.
Are you sure Mr. Valentine isn't in his apartment? Oh, I see. And you haven't heard from him since yesterday? No. No, this is Miss Brooks. I'll phone back later. I'm getting nowhere fast. Maybe there's a J.C. Collins in the city directory.
Hiya, Miss Brooks.
Oh, hi.
Thought I'd drop in and see what's wrong with Mr. Valentine.
Was that Leo? Have you seen George? When?
This morning he bought a paper for me, like always.
You mean he was right outside the building and never came upstairs?
I was with some big tough guy who was watching him every minute.
Oh. Well, did Mr. Valentine say anything to you, Leo?
Nah, just took a paper and give me this instead of a nickel. He ain't getting absent-minded or something, is he?
Here, let me see that.
I started to say something to him, but he gave me a look that froze me up tight. So I figured I'd come up and talk to you.
Oh, Leo, you're a few months ahead of time, but you're a real Santa Claus.
Huh? I am?
You don't know what a wonderful present you brought me.
I did?
The first real clue I've got.
You sure you're feeling okay, Miss Brooks? That's nothing but a union button. Every waiter wears one in every restaurant.
Lieutenant, I told you I was going to do some flouncing around.
I know, and you did. Now, what's this about the waiter's button?
I checked with the union. It was issued to Mike Spiegel, who works at the Glass Hat. He reported it lost this morning.
I see. And you're sure Valentine slipped it to the news for a reason?
A good reason. Lieutenant, did you know that Hotel Somerset is owned by Ernie Gorman?
So what? Even a thug like Gorman can own real estate as long as he pays his taxes?
Then Gorman could have told the clerk to say there was no J.C. Collins registered there.
Yeah, I suppose so.
In the letter George got, there was much to do about a beautiful dame. Well, there's a beautiful dame named Lila Parker singing at the Glass Hat.
Oh, there's a lot of beautiful dames singing in a lot of nightclubs.
But Lila happens to be the girlfriend of Frank Brandy, who, in turn, happens to be Ernie Gorman's biggest rival in this town.
Say, that's a thought, Miss Brooks. It sort of interests me. In fact, I like it. Say, where's that waiter's button?
Where are you going, Lieutenant?
Well, now it's my turn to do some flouncing around.
I hope you don't find this routine. I mean, sitting here with me. Too boring, George.
Somehow, Lila, I have a feeling that tonight isn't going to be boring at all.
I think I'd like my coffee now. It's almost time for me to do my number.
Sure. Oh, waiter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What can I do for you, sir?
Oh, you must be new here.
Yes, sir. I'm taking Spiegel's place. Just for tonight, sir.
That coffee, George.
Oh, well, no, not just plain coffee. Not tonight, Lila.
No?
No, something more lavish than that. Cafe Valentino.
Huh?
Do you think you'll be able to remember this, waiter?
I'll do the best I can, sir.
Now, look, it'll take some mocha, a dash of ginger, a touch of Tabasco, a few drops of Benedictine. Oh, yes, and of course we have to have...
Look, would you mind writing it down here on the pad so they get it just right back in the kitchen?
Oh, certainly. It's really not as complicated as it sounds.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we understood each other, sir.
Oh, I don't think there'll be any question about that. There you are.
Thank you, sir. I'll be right back.
You certainly go all out to get what you want, don't you?
Well, some things are worth a little extra effort, Lila.
I see Gorman has a new boy watching us tonight.
Yeah, well, that's good. Nothing like variety when every time you turn, there's a gunsel on your tail.
George, why doesn't Frank make a move? He must know about us by now.
I don't know, Lila.
We've been sitting here for 3 nights now. Word must have gotten back to him about us. I don't think I can stand this much
Easy,
longer.
Lila, we have company.
Oh, yes.
I hope this is right, sir. They said they did the best they could.
Fine. And I'll take the check.
Yes.
Oh, there goes Gus with my number. This wonderful treat will have to wait, George.
Oh, it'll be here, Lila. Now, let's see what the Cafe Valentino made the check look like. Don't worry about Miss Brooks. You stick with Gorman and Granby. We'll be behind you all the time. Riley.
We're sorry to drag you out of the Glass Hat the way we did, Don Valentine, aren't we, Raymond?
Personally, I'm filled with remorse.
Oh, yeah, I can just see the tears in your baby blue eyes, Raymond.
I don't like taking you out of the company of a beautiful dame, but the time has come. It's here. Tell what I mean, Raymond.
Granby's going to stop hiding tonight. He's coming out.
How do you know?
We caught up with one of his boys after a little persuasion.
That's good persuasion.
He told us. Granby knows what a Casanova Lily thinks you are, Valentine. So he can't hold out anymore, and he's going to pay her a little visit after she gets through singing at the Glass Hat. They're going away together.
And that's when you're going to get your chance at him, huh? Congratulations.
Well, what do you say, Raymond?
Just being sarcastic again.
Oh, is that what you call it? Anyway, you're not through yet, Valentine.
Surprise. I didn't think I was.
You see that Lila goes right home after the club, then you meet me across the street. I'd like us to be together to see how this thing winds up.
You're so good to me.
Oh, Ernie.
Oh, yeah?
Shall I bring Langley in now?
Yeah, but you talk to him. I don't want to know nothing what happens except that it's done right. See you later, Valentine. I'll be downstairs at the barber's, Raymond.
Well, you got a very sensitive boss.
He does all right. Well, Langley, come in here.
It's about time. Got me flying from Detroit. How long am I supposed to wait?
Not long now.
You, Gorman?
No, you're going to deal with me.
Who's that guy?
Oh, I'm just sitting here passing the time of day.
Now, if you listen carefully, Langley, you can be back in Detroit tomorrow morning.
What do I do? Somebody getting the complete treatment?
The full course. Now, you park your car in the 800 block on Sierra Avenue.
Yeah.
Sometime after midnight, a pink convertible is going to pass you. You can't miss it. It's a big custom job. I don't have to tell you what to do then.
Hey, Raymond, wait a minute. You can't... What about Lila?
Now who's being sensitive?
sure Lila's up there?
Why don't you answer your boys, Gorman? They followed us here from the glass hat.
I want to be sure. That's why I parked down the street and come over here.
Well, you can see the light in the window. And you can't mistake that pink convertible of hers across the street.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, Gorman, I have a hunch Granby got in touch with Lila at the club tonight and told her he'd be in the apartment.
Huh? What makes you think that?
Oh, when we got back here, she was in such a hurry to get upstairs, she jumped out and left the keys in her car.
Yeah? And all the boys got to do now is wait. We'll stay right here in this doorway.
You're the boss.
Look what goes here, Valentine. I don't like the way you're acting. What are you cooking up?
My, what a suspicious nature. I just know when I'm licked, that's all. Say, what happened to Raymond?
You got something else to do. My usual stay out of things like this, but Granby. And this I got to see for myself.
Wait a minute. The light just went out up there.
He must be coming downstairs. You stay here, Valentine. I'm going to get a little closer. I want to see him better when he comes out with it.
I knew you'd be there, Gordon.
What?
See what you can do about this.
She's trying to kill me.
Lila, stop it. Don't be a fool.
Go on, Gordon. Try to run. Where are you going to hide in empty streets?
Oh, please, Lila, don't. Let me talk this over with Frank.
Frank's not here, but he just died. Go on. Let me see you run, Gordon.
The car. That's right, a car.
Wait, Gorman. Stay out of that car.
Don't you see she's trying to kill me?
Gorman!
I told you I gotta get away.
He can't get away.
Gorman, wait. I tried to tell you. You can't get away. It's a plan. Gorman!
This is the first time I ever saw a hearse painted pink. And the corpse behind the wheel.
Valentine, when you called that car a pink hearse, you weren't far wrong. I just had a good look at Gorman down at the morgue.
Yeah, well, as you know, Lieutenant, I tried to stop him.
Lieutenant, I thought you had men planted all around that street.
I did, but they weren't fast enough to keep Langley from killing the man who hired him. Anyway, he and Raymond are going to be out of circulation for a long, long time.
What about Lila?
Well, what do you want me to do, Valentine? Arrest a woman because she's a bad shot? Let the DA decide what he wants to do.
Well, that's that, Brooksy. Oh, Lieutenant, would you join us in some Cafe Valentino?
Why, Say, I've been meaning to ask you. What kind of a concoction is that?
Oh, just a little thing I dreamed up, Lieutenant. But I'd sure hate to drink it.
You can bet a successful contractor knows profit and loss just as well as a banker, a baker, or yourself. J.R. Armstrong, contractor in Oakland, California, keeps a sharp eye on costs when it comes to car operation. That's why he switched to RPM motor oil 8 years ago. Today, Mr. Armstrong says, quote, I haven't had an engine breakdown since I started using RPM in 1940, unquote. An unusual record? Well, it's no surprise to RPM users. For compounds in this premium quality motor oil actually stop rust in your car's engine, protect hot spots left bare by ordinary motor oils, prevent costly foaming and corrosion. The low-cost operation Mr. Armstrong enjoys is typical of RPM users throughout the West. Another reason they prefer RPM 2-to-1 over any other motor oil. To cut your car expenses, ask for RPM motor oil at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations, where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. Next week, when you tune our way for another adventure of George Valentine, you'll hear...
There are probably darker places than this, George. I can't think of any.
Yeah, we're almost up to the top floor now, Brooksy.
You know, I could have sworn I heard somebody downstairs in the hall.
Oh, probably just plaster falling off the ceiling.
Oh, I can't imagine anyone living here.
Just stay right behind me, Angel.
Oh! George! George, where are you? George!
next adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West. Let George Do It stars Robert Bailey as George with Frances Robinson as Claire. Wally Mayer appears as Lieutenant Riley. Tonight's story was written by David Victor and Herbert Little, Jr. and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Louise Arthur as Lila, Ed Max as Gorman, Louis Van Ruten as Raymond, and Jack Crucian as Langley. The music is composed and conducted by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Now, this was a particularly exciting episode of Let George Do It. This is probably the most hard-boiled episode. Very nice change of pace from the normal mystery story. With Claire and Lieutenant Riley forced to go into action to solve the case. So I absolutely love this episode. This may have been the 100th episode, depends on who you ask. Old-time radio researchers number this as number 100. Digital Dilly numbers it as number 107, I believe. But if it was 100, it was a good 100th episode. And tomorrow we'll be joined by Sherlock Holmes, who will flounce around. That was a phrase I had not heard. Probably the best meaning of flounce here is to move clumsily or flounder. I also found that gesture with the cigarette to make the boyfriend jealous. That was kind of interesting, and with the way our culture's changed, it's not something we would pick up on necessarily unless it was explained to us. Andrew emails in, great show. I listen to it on my way to work every day riding on the bus. I like how you switch up the shows. Do you like Richard Diamond Private Detective? Thought that you might. I definitely do. Great show with music as well. I think I may have mentioned this before, but somebody actually went into all the Richard Diamond episodes and made like a separate release on archive.org of all of the Richard Diamond singing. So that's going to be a treat when we get to it in a few years. I don't have a whole lot to get into today, but I do want to let you know very briefly about Netflix. You want to see Sherlock Holmes as played by Basil Rathbone, or as played by Robert Downey, or as played by Jeremy Brett? Well, there's one place you can do it, and without filling your house with DVDs or spending hundreds of dollars. Go to Netflix, netflix.greatdetectives.net, or just go to greatdetectives.net, click on the Netflix banner. I've been a customer of Netflix for years, and through them I've enjoyed some of the classics, The Big Sleep, The Maltese Falcon, and several varieties of Sherlock Holmes. So if you want the type of movies you want, and to be able to view them at a reasonable price, go to Netflix. The plans start at about $9 a month. All right, well, let's get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Manor House Case. Let's listen, then we'll come back.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invites you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And I sure wish you could listen to this story with a glass of Petri California Port right at your elbow. Petri Port. That's the wine that's perfect after dinner when you're just taking things easy. And say, if you've never tried Petri Port, if you've never tasted that wonderful, rich red wine, well, this is the week to do it. I'll tell you why. This is National Wine Week, sort of a celebration we're having to mark the return to good living. Your wine merchant is kind of rolling out the red plush carpet this week, and among other things, He wants to prove to you that you just couldn't ask for a more delicious wine than Petri wine. Why don't you take him up on it? And begin by becoming acquainted with Petri Port. You'll really love it, and so will your guests. And say, you can serve Petri Port proudly, because after all, the name Petri is the proudest name in the history of American wines. That's a fact. Well, here's the patio of Dr. Watson's Northern California bungalow, but where's the doctor?
Here I am, Mr. Bartell, out in the garden.
Okay, I'll be right there. Oh, sitting by the fish pond, huh, Doctor?
Yes, my boy. It's rather pleasant out here for a change. Has it ever occurred to you how stupid the expression of a goldfish is, Mr. Bartell?
Well, I can't say I've ever given it much thought, Doctor. Why?
You see this foolish little fellow here with his silly little mouth opening and closing as though he were constantly astonished?
What is this? I thought you were a fish lover.
Yes, I am. But as I was brooding over tonight's story, that goldfish seemed to be making faces at me as though it were trying to remind me of how my face must have looked on a certain June evening in 1890.
It sounds to me as if you're going to tell a story against yourself, Doctor.
I am, young fellow, my lad.
What happened?
One Sunday morning in 1890, I dropped round to visit my friend in Baker Street. Mrs. Hudson told me that he was out, but suggested that I wait in our old rooms for his return and promised me a pot of strong tea and some buttered scones as an inducement. As I walked into the sitting room, I was astonished to see Holmes standing there, a bag in one hand and a coat in the other.
My dear chap, how are you?
I'm fine, Holmes. I'm surprised to see you, though. Mrs. Hudson told me that you were out.
I have been, Watson, on a case. I just returned by my private entrance for some necessary apparatus.
Oh, could I come with you? My wife's away, you know, but my practice is quite slack at the moment.
Not even my trusty old friend Watson can accompany me on this case. It's a ticklish business. The fate of two nations hangs in the balance. I must work alone. Sorry to leave you like this, old fellow. Goodbye.
Oh, wait a minute. Mrs. Hudson's making me some tea and some buttered scones. Can't you wait and share them with me?
Huh? Good old Watson. You're the one fixed point in a changing age. Empires are tottering, and you talk of tea and buttered scones.
Oh, I'm sorry I must be off. Oh, goodbye, old fellow.
Oh, don't look so sad, old fellow. When the time is ripe, I'll tell you all about the case, and you can write it up in your memoirs. Goodbye, old boy.
Buttered scones. I haven't got any appetite for them now.
Did you enjoy the scones, Dr. Watson?
Oh, I'm afraid my appetite disappeared when Mr. Holmes left.
It did it? I see you've eaten them all just the same.
What? Oh, yes, so I did.
I've got a surprise for you, Doctor. Inspector Lestrade is downstairs.
Oh, is he?
He came to see Mr. Holmes, but when I told him he was out, the inspector said he'd like to see you.
Oh, he did? Oh, splendid. I'll ask him to come up, please, will you, Mrs. Hudson?
Aye, sir. Will you come up, please, Inspector?
Thank you, Mrs. Hudson.
Can I butter you up a few more scones?
No, thank you. I really couldn't eat them.
I'll just go and make some more the same. You'll eat them if I fix them, Doctor.
No, really, thank you. There you are, Lestrade.
Hello, Dr. Watson. Here's a pretty kettle of fish and no mistake.
Huh? What's the trouble?
Well, I want Mr. Holmes' help on a most important case. Where's he gone?
Well, he's out on a very, secret matter.
You know where he is, Doctor?
Well, naturally I know where he is, Lestrade. My old friend never keeps me in the dark, but I'm not at liberty to tell you. Perhaps I could help you a bit. After all, I'm not exactly unfamiliar with my friend's methods.
That's true, but just the same... Oh, well, Doctor, two heads are always better than one, even if one is a sheep's head, as my old mother used to say.
Are you suggesting that I'm a sheep's head?
No, I'm not suggesting anything, Doctor. I'm just telling you what my old mother used to say.
I'm really not very interested in what your old mother used to say. Oh. And now, Lestrade, your problem, please.
Well, it's simple enough, Doctor. A German diplomat, Graf Otto von Eldenstein is his name, is in England on a very secret mission.
Graf Otto von Heldenstein? Huh. Yes, I've heard of him. Pray continue.
Well, this von Eldenstein staying at the Manor House at Hampton Wick, not far out of London. This morning, somebody slipped past his guards and threw a bomb into his study. His secretary was killed, and he would have been too, If it hadn't been that he'd left the room a few minutes earlier.
Well, these second-hand investigations are very little use, Lestrade. We must both go down to the Manor house at Hampton Wick and examine the situation on the spot.
All right.
Get out the timetable and look up the next train, will you?
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, I'll go and tell Mrs. Hudson where I'm going.
All right, you are, Doctor.
Doctor, I was just bringing them up to you.
Scones? Well, who can think of scones when an empire's tottering?
Are you sure you're feeling quite well, Doctor?
Of course I am. Now, listen to me, Mrs. Hudson. If Mr. Holmes should return, please tell him that I've gone to Hampton Wick with Inspector Lestrade to investigate the von Heldenstein business.
The von Heldenstein business. Aye, Doctor, I'll tell him that.
Mr. Holmes didn't tell you where he was going, did he?
No, Doctor, he didn't.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, thank you, Mrs. Hudson. Thank
Are
you.
you sure you don't want the scones, Doctor?
I might as well take him along. I dare say Lestrade could eat him.
Ah, you're the one, Doctor.
Yes, I suppose this is rather exciting. Just the same, I wish I knew what Holmes was doing at this moment.
You are Herr Sherlock Holmes?
Yes, I presume Graf Otto von Heldenstein is expecting me?
Ja, Herr Holmes. He was so anxious that you would come here to the Manor house.
I left immediately after I got his summons.
He's very weak. He has lost much blood from the injuries he received this morning.
Injuries that no one knows about, eh?
Nein, Herr Holmes. Only I, his old and faithful servant, knows. Follow me, please. I will take you to him.
Franz, is that you, Franz?
Ja, Herr Graf. And with me is Herr Sherlock Holmes.
Oh. Thank heaven you are here, Holmes.
I hope I can be of service to you, sir.
You can. You can be of great service. Sit close to my bed, Holmes. I have not much strength to speak.
I'm listening, Herr Graf.
You must impersonate me.
Yes, so I gathered when I received your message.
I am in England on a most delicate and important mission for the German government. Within a few weeks, your government and mine will conclude a treaty outlining the German and British spheres of interest in Africa.
I see. Obviously, that bomb was thrown this morning by someone who does not wish the treaty to be concluded.
Yeah, exactly, Herr Holmes. That is why you must impersonate me. In 24 hours' time, I shall be well enough to resume my work. In the meanwhile, you can keep the secret of my injuries and also have the opportunity of finding the assassin.
I'm quite prepared to undertake the impersonation, sir, but how can I possibly hope to deceive the members of your personal staff?
With the exception of Franz here and poor Fräulein Ullmeyer, who was killed in the explosion that injured me, my staff is new. They have joined me here from the German consulate in London. They will believe that you are me.
Very well, sir. I'll try it.
I have heard of your skill in the art of disguises, and also it seems to me we are not so unlike each other.
I was about to comment on that fact myself, sir. Yes, I think that a moustache and side whiskers will work wonders. If I can make the accent reasonably convincing...
I will coach you, my friend.
Splendid. Help me off with my coat, will you, Franz? Get me towels and a mirror.
Jawohl, Herr Holmes.
And while I'm applying my makeup, Herr Graf, perhaps you will be so good as to give me the complete circumstances regarding this morning's attempt on your life. If I'm to impersonate you successfully, I must have all the facts at my fingertips.
Wunderbar. It is amazing, Herr Holmes. Even I can hardly tell you from my master.
Yes, I think it's the wig that puts the finishing touch to my disguise. How's it look to you, Herr Graf?
Colossal. I feel as if I were looking into a mirror.
And my accent, you find it reasonably convincing?
Oh, yeah. Extremely so. Try it once again, Herr Holmes.
Ja, Herr Graf.
It gives me the greatest pleasure to do what you ask of me.
Prächtig, splendid, Herr Holmes, splendid.
A cab is drawn up at the gate. 2 men are getting out. You can see them from the window here.
No, it's the police, possibly, or... Great Scott! It's Watson and Lestrade.
Friends of yours, Herr Holmes?
One of them is my close colleague, and the other is a detective inspector from Scotland Yard.
Oh, you must keep up the deception, even with your friends.
As a matter of fact, my friend's investigations will prove an excellent mask for my own search for the assassin. But, well, this is a delicious situation. I hope they won't recognize me. I am Graf Otto von Heldenstein, gentlemen. You wish to see me?
How do you do, sir? My name is Watson, Dr. Watson, and this is Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard.
How do you do, sir? Inspector, Dr. Watson, may I ask if I have the great distinction of addressing the Dr. Watson, friend of Sherlock Holmes?
Oh, I'm very flattered that you know me, Herr Graf.
But who does not know the great Dr. Watson? In my country, many people think that you are the real brains of the combination. Tell me, Herr Doctor, is that true?
Well, I wouldn't exactly say that, sir.
Of course, you have both come here to investigate what occurred this morning.
Yes, we have, sir.
Please sit down. If you can find any furniture that is unbroken.
Oh, thank you, sir. I must say the place is in a bit of a mess. And now, Herr Graf, please tell us exactly what happened.
Yeah. I will tell you everything, Herr Doctor. This morning I was working in here with my secretary, poor Fräulein Ulmer. I had occasion to go upstairs to my room to get some necessary papers. As I came down the staircase to return here, I heard a scream from Fräulein Ulmer. A moment later, there was a most frightful explosion. The concussion stunned me. When I came to, my poor secretary was dead.
What people were inside the house at the time of the explosion?
The servants were all at the church. The only people here was my secretary who was killed. My servant, Franz, I can vouch for him because he was upstairs when I went for my documents. There were 3 other people in the house, however. Madame Lisa Barona, my hostess, and the owner of this house. A young Englishman from the Home Office. His name is Hilary Adams, and the 3rd person in the house was a member of the German embassy, Colonel Schweiger.
Oh, then it's just a matter of cross-questioning the 3 of them as to their alibis at the time of the explosion. I'll take them one at a time, Lestrade. Ring for that servant fellow. What was his name?
Franz.
Franz, that's the name.
This is a rare privilege to watch a master detective at work.
Yes, Herr Graf. I shouldn't be surprised if my methods teach you quite a bit about the art of detection.
Herr Dr. Watson, this is Colonel Schweiger of the German embassy.
Where were you, Colonel Schweiger, when the explosion occurred this morning?
I was discussing the military tactics of Clausewitz with one of the guards near the front gates.
Yeah, well, what was the name of the guard, sir?
Carter. Mr. Arthur Carter.
Yeah, I'll check on that.
Thank you, Colonel Schweiger. Please ask Madame Lissa Verona to come in with her.
Questions, nothing but questions. Leave me alone.
Sorry, madam. All I want to know is where were you when the explosion occurred this morning?
Where was I? In my boudoir, listening to that stupid babblings of the young Englishman, Hilary Adams. Herr Graf, when I offered you my house, I did not know that I would have to put up with the love-making of your staff. Everywhere he followed.
No. Please don't get so excited, Madame Verona.
Questions. Stupid young English puppies making calf eyes at me. My beautiful house blown to pieces. Lord, you do it.
Mr. Adams, where were you when the explosion occurred?
In Madame Verona's suite.
You swear to that?
Of course I do. You may ask her.
I've already done so, sir. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Thank you. That's all. You may go. Well, Lestrade, did you check on Colonel Schweiger's alibi?
Yes, Doctor. He was telling the truth. He was talking to the Colonel when the explosion happened.
Dear me, Herr Doctor, your examination has not been very successful, has it, sir? Everyone has an alibi.
Yes, but the alibis of Madame Verona and the young Englishman, Hilary Adams, depend on each other's words. They might be lying. When you've been dealing with criminals as long as I have, Herr Graf, you learn to look far deeper than the obvious. Yes, Lestrade and I shall return to London now and make some inquiries. You will hear from me, sir, before the day is over.
Ah, yes. Well, I'm much obliged to you, Doctor, for a very nice meal. Although we've been talking in circles.
Not entirely. Anyway, I have come to one important decision.
Oh, and what's that, Doctor?
Madame Verona is addicted to the use of drugs. The pupils of her eyes were contracted to pinpoints. It's an invariable indication of drug addiction. Lestrade, you go to Scotland Yard and see what you can find out about her, and I'll go back to my house. You can meet me there later. I wish Mary wasn't away. It's the cook's night out, confound it. I can't see a thing. I'll strike a match. That's better. Hello? Who's that in the drawing room? Who is it?
Watson! I thought you'd never come.
Holmes, where on earth do you spring from?
Never mind that, old chap. I've come to warn you. Keep out of the von Heldenstein business if you value your life.
Well, how did you know that I was working on the case?
I haven't time to tell you now, but I implore you. Keep out of it. There are dangerous forces at work. Forces that would snuff out your life without a thought. Please believe me, old chap. And do as I... Quick, Watson! Out of the dining room! Bomb, Watson! Down the bomb!
You'll hear the rest of Dr. Watson's story in just a few seconds. All the time I need to remind you that, what with this being National Wine Week, if you want to take a gift to a young lady, why not take her a bottle of Petri California Muscatel? Petri Muscatel is the kind of wine you'd serve a queen. That Petri Muscatel has a flavor of plump, sun-ripened Muscat grapes, and is it ever good? You couldn't ask for a more delicious after-dinner wine, or a more delicious wine to serve when company comes. Remember, it's Muscatel, but the important thing is, it's Petri. Petri Muscatel. And now back to Dr. Watson and tonight's adventure, the Manor House case. Well, that was a fine place to break off your story, Doctor, I must say.
Bartell, I thought I'd keep you in as much suspense as possible.
Well, what happened next? Were you and Holmes injured when that bomb exploded?
No, my boy. The concussion of the explosion knocked me out for a few minutes. When I came to, Holmes had disappeared.
And I can imagine where he'd gone. Go on, Doctor.
Soon after that, Lestrade arrived on the scene, and after a quick and fruitless examination of the premises, we decided to return once more to the Manor House. And so, an hour later, I was telling my story to the man I still thought to be the Graf Otto von Heldenstein.
But this is dreadful, Herr Doctor. The bomb might easily have killed you.
Oh, I was ready for it, sir. Quick thinking and presence of mind are my stock in trade, you know. When I heard the ghastly crash, I flung myself under the dining room table.
I'm most distressed that you yourself should be exposed to such danger.
Not at all, Herr Graf. As a matter of fact, I exposed myself deliberately to the attack. It's an old army trick, you know, what we call drawing the enemy's fire.
Calm now, Doctor. You don't mean to tell us that you expected to have that bomb chucked through the window at you?
Of course I did, Lestrade. The assassin knew that I was working on the case. He followed me to London and fell into my trap, just as I intended him to, by showing his hand.
Well, I don't see what he's got you, Doctor.
I myself must admit I cannot see that you are any nearer to finding the murderer.
On the contrary, sir, the case is nearly solved.
Well, I don't see how you figure that one out, Doctor.
Elementary, my dear Lestrade, elementary. One of the three people under suspicion followed me to my house tonight. The second bomb was thrown at approximately 7 o'clock. Now, it's only a question of finding which one of the three cannot account for his movements at that time. Then we shall know the murderer.
You want to cross-examine them again, Doctor?
Yes, Lestrade. Bring them in, please. One at a time. Colonel Schweiger, where were you at 7 o'clock tonight?
Discussing the military tactics of Clausewitz with Mr. Carter of the Home Office Guards.
Great Scott, that's what you were doing at 11 o'clock this morning, too.
It would take many days of discussion for two students to appreciate all the subtleties of Clausewitz.
Yeah, I'll check on that again, Doctor.
Thank you, Lestrade. And please ask Madame Verona to come in, will you?
Questions, and still more questions. Where was I 7 tonight, you ask me? I was listening to more babblings from that stupid young Englishman. Ask him for yourself.
Mr. Adams, where were you at 7 tonight?
With Madame Verona in her boudoir.
There is a curious sameness about the pattern of life in this house, is there not, Herr Doctor?
Well, I checked on Colonel Schweiger's statement. It was true. He was talking to Carter at 7 o'clock, all right. Well, could the other two account for themselves, Doctor?
Well, once again, they alibied for each other, but this time I begin to doubt them.
Oh, why do you say that, Herr Doctor?
Well, I would accept Madame Verona's alibi for young Adams. Obviously, she loathes the boy and wouldn't perjure herself for him. On the other hand, he worships her, and I'm certain that he wouldn't have any scruples about lying to provide an alibi for her.
Well, you got a point there, Doctor.
Yes, I regard her with great suspicion. Yeah, come in. Yes, Mr. Adams?
Dr. Watson, I've been worrying about Madame Verona. I was afraid you wouldn't believe my alibi for her.
Indeed?
I have another, an unbiased witness who can testify that Madame Verona was in this house at 7 tonight. Come in, Franz.
Jawohl, gnädiger Herr.
Franz, did you see Madame Verona at 7 tonight?
Ja. I take up 2 glasses of sherry to her. It was a few minutes before 7.
Thank you, Franz. Thank you, Mr. Adams. I appreciate your concern. You may go.
Yeah. Seems to me we're still traveling in circles, Doctor.
On the contrary, my dear Lestrade, the case is solved.
Indeed. You astonish me, Herr Doctor. Who is the guilty party?
You'll know in a minute, sir. Lestrade, bring the 3 suspects in here, please.
Right, sir.
When they are assembled, I will give you the solution to the mystery. Ladies and gentlemen, the mystery is solved, and I must apologize for any little inconvenience that you've undergone. You, Madame Verona, you, Colonel Schweiger, and you, Mr. Adams, have all unshakable alibis. Therefore, the solution's obvious. As my dear friend Sherlock Holmes has often said, eliminate the impossible, and whatever remains, no matter how improbable, is the truth. Therefore, the only person that could have thrown both bombs is you yourself, Graf Otto von Heldenstein.
Oh, George, I believe you're right, Doctor.
What have you got to say for yourself, sir?
That I, too, Herr Doctor, have an unshakable alibi.
Oh, what is it?
I was with you, Herr Doctor, when the second bomb was thrown.
What on earth are you talking about? I was alone, sir.
Oh, come now, old fellow, that's not true.
Holmes.
What?
Holmes, how could you?
Mr. Holmes. Well, strike me.
Don't be angry with me, old chap.
Oh, you made a complete
fool
of me,
my dear fellow. Not at all.
I've never
I
seen
suppose
any...
you got the real solution to the case, as usual, Mr.
Yes,
Adams?
Lestrade, I have.
Well, let's hear it, then. Might as well show me up to
Oh,
the
my dear
acid
Watson, stop
huh?
berating yourself. You really handled the case very well. You made only one mistake.
Huh?
May I revise that dictum of mine which you just quoted? Eliminate the possible, and then, if nothing remains, some part of the impossible must be possible.
Which part?
Colonel Schweiger's alibi was valid. So was Madame Verona's, since it was corroborated by the trusty Franz. But what does your alibi rest on, Mr. Adams?
Madame Verona's told you I was here at 7.
Yes, but Madame Verona is addicted to the use of drugs. I'm sure that you spotted that fact, Watson.
Yes, matter of fact, I did.
Your mistake, old chap, was in not drawing the correct conclusion. Mr. Adams' alibi depends on the unsupported word of a drug addict. Now, the use of drugs notoriously destroys, first of all, the sense of time. Any trick such as the resetting of clocks could be worked on her without her noticing. Her word on a time alibi is completely valueless.
Then Adams is the man
Fools, meddlers. Why don't you... No. He's a murderer and a traitor. Well, now that we're back in Baker Street, Watson, I may as well tell you that I had my suspicions of Adams from the first.
You did? Why?
Well, my brother Mycroft had told me that he was suspected of being a traitor at heart. He's been under observation for some years. He was purposely given this assignment as a definite test of his integrity.
Well, I understand it all now, Holmes. It's the same. I did make an ass of myself in front of Lestrade, too.
Don't worry about it, old chap. Please don't worry. You always can correct that impression, you know. Yours will be the last word.
Oh, how do you mean?
Well, when you come to write this story in your memoirs, my dear fellow, you can always do a little, what shall we say, re-editing of your own part. Posterity never need know.
Doctor, that was really a swell story.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Sort of made me out of a bit of a fool, though.
Oh, nothing of the kind, Doctor. I agree with Holmes. You did a splendid job.
Oh, you really think I did?
After all, you did line up his suspects for him, didn't you?
Well, come to think of it, yes, of course I did.
And you did make the point that Madame Verona was a drug addict.
Yes, by Jove, so I did.
And you did say that Mr. Adams' alibi could be a lie.
By Jove, you're right. I did solve that case for Holmes after all. Mr. Bartell, did anyone ever tell you that you're really a very smart young man? I wish you and I could work on a case together.
We can. Starting tonight.
No. Really?
Sure. In celebration of National Wine Week, I brought you a case of Petri wine. And I suggest we start on it right now with a glass of port.
What a fellow.
What a wine. Petri wine. We know that's really good because the Petri family has been making fine wine since the 1800s. For generations. Ever since they started the Petri business, the Petri family has been turning luscious California grapes into fragrant, delicious wine. And during all that time, they've been handing on down from father to son, all their skill and knowledge and experience. The Petri wine you buy today is the result of all that skill and knowledge and experience. That's why you can't go wrong when you choose a Petri wine, because Petri took time to bring you good wine. And now, Dr. Watson, what's the prescription for next week's story?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, Mr. Bartell, I think I can promise you a most entertaining adventure. It concerns a famous magician, a female spy of unusual beauty, and a man even more brilliant than Holmes himself. His older brother, Mycroft.
Sounds terrific, Doctor. And before we say goodnight to our friends, I want to remind them that our men overseas need the Merchant Marine to bring them back home. The Merchant Marine got them there, and it'll bring them back, if you help. Right now, the Merchant Marine needs experienced mates, engineers, ABs, firemen, oiler water tenders, and chief cooks. If you qualify, write or wire collect at once to Merchant Marine, Washington 25, D.C. Bring the boys home. Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure is written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Greek Interpreter. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. A very exciting case with some really strong action for a Sherlock Holmes story. This is our action-packed week, apparently. I can hardly wait to see what Johnny Dollar has for tomorrow. I also found it interesting there were a couple cues that the war was over. First was the mention at the beginning of buying wine basically as a sign that good times were back. And then the storyline with Sherlock Holmes helping out a German noble. And if you recall back to In Flanders Failed, that was pretty stridently anti-German in that episode, obviously, because the war was going on. But you kind of see a quick, forgiving nature of the American people. War hasn't been over 7 months, and German and tone towards the German people has relaxed quite a bit. That's why America were the people who not only defeated the Germans, but then helped to rebuild the country. And other than getting the solution wrong, I didn't think Dr. Watson was bad at all in the detective role. It was a very interesting, well-written story. All right, we turn to comments. Got this comment on Podcast Alley.
Oh, my gosh!
Episode 137, nearly 5 minutes of in-tour commentary. Ugh, not that interesting. And a voice that is like chalk on a blackboard. The programs are fine, but we could do without so much commentary. I just try to zip past the comments to get right to the program. At least edit the comments and rehearse before recording. Better yet, have all the comments at the end.
Well, flattery will get you nowhere. I'm sorry they thought that the commentary was a little long at the beginning. The episode 137 was the one where I talked about finding out Jackson Gillis was alive in Moscow, Idaho. Usually we keep the commentary, we try to keep the opening commentary pretty short, unless I come up with something that I think will be of interest to the audience. On this show, we generally keep the intro commentaries fairly brief, but sometimes take the host prerogative. So that's what happened on that. Comment, Adam, Great Detectives rocks. Johnny Dollar and Sherlock are two of my favorites. How about more Johnny Dollar with Bob Bailey? By far the best of all the Dollars. Thanks for the comment. Bob Bailey is definitely the consensus fan choice as the best Dollar. However, this is something I said when we started the show, but I haven't repeated as often. But for people who, just start tuning in and downloading the most recent episodes, we're going through all the episodes in the order of their air dates, which means we've got quite a bit more of Edmund O'Brien and then John Lunn before we actually get to the Bob Bailey episodes. So it'll be a few years. The one advantage of doing it this way is that also gives us the time for some episodes that are lost to come to light. I was looking at an OTRsite.com log from a few years ago, and several of the Johnny Dollar episodes they listed as lost have come forward, so particularly from the Bailey era. So I can hardly wait to get there, but I think we'll probably have better quality audio and more of it when we actually get there. Well, thanks for the comment, and thanks for voting on Podcast Alley. I encourage everybody to do that. As of this recording, a week before, which is a week before this episode's uploaded, we're ranked number 23 on Podcast Alley. But I encourage everybody to cast your vote. You don't have to leave a comment to vote. All right, well, during last week's conversation about writers, we forgot to talk about Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd of Johnny Dollar. With Dowd, he may have been at the peak of his career. Both Dowd and Dudley died before Johnny Dollar as a show died. Dowd died in 1957, Dudley died in 1959. Dowd wrote for television several episodes of Gunsmoke after Johnny Dollar. He wrote several episodes of Escape. And he wrote, of course, for Sam Spade and Voyage of the Scarlet Queen. It was kind of interesting. I listened to Jim Widner's podcast, and he talked about Dowd, and he said that Dowd had an arrangement where he got $500 an episode, which was a little less than $4,000 back then in today's dollars, and Edmund O'Brien got $400 an episode. So I thought, if we had that type of ratio with film actors I might just try and get one major film screenplay published. So it was a good deal for him. But that's Gil Dowd wrote for Voyage of the Scarlet Queen and Sam Spade. Well, we do have some interesting details coming forth from a listener regarding Charles Russell, and we'll get into that after the show. Don't want to delay us too much longer getting into the body of the show. But I do want to briefly let you know that as you make your plans for the summer, remember JohnnyDollarAir.com, where you can find great deals on hotels, airline tickets, rental cars, and even more by either naming your own price or by searching from published fares. JohnnyDollarAir.com is Priceline.com. So remember, for all your travel needs, JohnnyDollarAir.com. Now we're going to get into today's episode, The Gravedigger Spade.
Time now for Edmund O'Brien as Johnny Dollar.
Johnny, how soon can you get out to Highbridge, North Dakota?
North Dakota, huh? In the winter, you guys send me to North Dakota, in the summer to Miami, Florida. All right, what's your problem?
We got 2 old duffers insured for a total of $80,000.
What's the matter? Somebody threatening to kill them?
No, they're threatening to kill themselves.
Edmund O'Brien in another of the adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, National Fidelity Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during investigation of your policyholders, Mr. and Mrs. Arbuthnot Trump, or how the grave digger Spade came near being Trumps. Expense account item 1, $113.52 railroad fare, Hartford, Connecticut to Highbridge, North Dakota. As I walked towards the station in Highbridge, the wind whipped white shawls of snow out of the night and around me like a Spanish dancer, and the raw cold had my teeth acting like castanets. Inside the shack, I found a pot-bellied stove surrounded by a pot-bellied station master. Hello?
Oh, hello. You are our only customer?
Well, I'm the only one got off the train. Can I find a taxi around here?
Yep. As soon as my son gets the mail and freight tucked away, he'll take you. Only won't be any taxi cab. You drive it wherever you're going in the Pong. By the way, where are you going?
To the Trump residence. You know it?
Yep, I know it. You one of the family?
No, just business.
Oh. Well...
Well, what?
What is your business is none of mine. But, have you ever been out there before?
No, I haven't. Why, something wrong?
If it ain't, then everybody in this town has been getting a lot of unnecessary exercise. Jump to conclusions. Well... Here comes the boy. He'll drive you over. Hickey.
Yeah?
Hickey, you got a customer for the Pong. Wants to go out to Trump place.
Trump place? Well, all right. But, mister, I'll only take you as far as the gate. You say this your first visit, huh? That right, Mr. Dollar?
Yep, that's right. Hey, how much more we got to go?
Oh, about another mile. You cold?
Cold? Ooh, I'm freezing.
Well, slap your arms around. Keep up circulation.
Hey, does it always get this cold around here?
Nope. Only in the winter.
Oh. Say, Hickey.
Yeah?
You mind answering a few more questions?
No, many answers. You're welcome to those.
Well, what about this Trump place? Why is everybody around here scared of it? What is it, a haunted house?
Nope. As far as I know, everybody out there's alive, all right. Matter of fact, I'd feel better if some of the things out there was dead.
What do you mean?
Well, past year or so, I've been delivering some packages out there. Boxes coming express on a train. Some of them come all the way from Africa. Quite a few from India, too. All marked danger. All marked do not open. Deadly. Whatever comes in those boxes is alive.
What about the people, the Trumps themselves?
Oh, they look nice enough. Sort of on the old side. Old man Trump looks like a deacon. His wife looks like a deacon's wife. But they never seem to come to town, let alone church. Hey, that's funny.
What's so funny?
Well, look, they're on the road. Fresh auto tracks. Only one place to go out this way. Same place we're going. To the Trump house.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Those folks never have no visitors. Now, looks like they're having a lot. Hey, maybe they're having guests for dinner.
That's right. Maybe they are having guests in for dinner.
I didn't say in for dinner. I said maybe they're having guests for dinner.
Oh, that's some funny joke, that is.
Yeah. Well, here we are, right around the next bend.
Good. Now, I'll tell you what, Hickey. When I get ready for you to drive me back, I'll give you a call on the telephone, huh?
Well, that'll be a good trick if you can do it.
What do you mean?
They don't have no telephone.
Expense account item 2, $1.50 tongue fare. Hybrid station to the gate of the Trump estate where the driver Hickey dumped me off. I used one of the fresh tire tracks as a footpath up the long driveway through the snow, and steaming the white flakes out of my eyes with my breath, I took inventory of the house. It was big, colonial, and in good repair. All rooms lighted downstairs, one room lighted upstairs. Near the front, the automobile tracks took off around to the back of the house. I had to make my own footsteps in the drifts from there to the front door.
Quickly, don't let that cold in. Let's shut the door. Now, who are you? What do you want? What are you doing here?
I'm Johnny Dollar from the insurance company. As to what I want to see Mr. and Mrs. Trump. As to what I'm doing here, I'm just the victim of a bad choice of careers early in life.
Well, all right. Take a seat over there. I'll go check with Mr. and Mrs. Trump. But don't bother taking your coat off yet.
So this is Northern hospitality. Coming in out of the cold makes any house seem warm, but my overcoat started to steam about 10 seconds after I got inside this one. So did I. Looking around, I saw the reason. There were potted orchids growing all over the hallway, and orchids grow only in tropical warmth. Despite the invitation not to, I took off my overcoat and waited. After 10 more minutes, I felt like slipping out of my suit, a decision I didn't have time to make.
Just finishing dinner, Mr. Dollar. They suggest you join them for coffee. Follow me.
Thanks.
Mrs. Trump, Mr. Trump, this is Mr. Dollar.
How do you do?
How are you, Mrs. Trump?
Won't you join us? There, sit right over there.
Yes, Mr. Dollar, come and sit down. Have some coffee.
Oh, thank you.
Fine. Now that'll be all when you may leave.
Well.
Fine. Now, sugar and cream, Mr. Dollar?
No, thank you, Mrs. Trump. This will be all right just the way it is.
Well, Mr. Dollar, I assume you brought the necessary papers?
Yes, I did. They're in my pocket all ready for your signature.
Good. We'll sign them right away.
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't sign them, at least until I'd had a chance to talk to you about it.
Talk to us? What is there to talk about?
I hope you understand that, well, it isn't every day that an insurance company gets a letter from a pair of policyholders calmly stating that they are both planning to commit suicide.
Oh, no?
No.
Oh. Well, I suppose it is a bit out of the usual run of things, but there's nothing we can do about it. My goodness, we checked with our lawyer.
And he said we were perfectly within our rights.
Well, granted, you've had the policy a long, long time, and the suicide clause is no longer in effect. However, frankly, the company did send me out here in the hope that while I was arranging the change of beneficiary you requested, I could also talk you into changing your mind.
Mr. Dollar, you might just as well save your breath. Our minds are made up.
Mrs. Trump is right, Mr. Dollar. As soon as we get those change of beneficiary papers signed, we intend to dispose of ourselves.
Well,
And furthermore, young man, within the past 48 hours, we have had ourselves thoroughly examined by a board of extremely well-thought-of alienists who signed documentary proof that we are both perfectly safe. So there is nothing you can do to stop us in that direction.
But why? Why do you want to do this? Now, you don't look unhappy.
Well, we're not. We've had an extremely happy life, haven't we, Mr. Trump?
Indeed, we have, Mrs. Trump. And that's just it. You see, Mr. Dollar, we both feel that having enjoyed such a beautiful life, we owe the world something. And finally, we have evolved a method of paying our debt. In doing what we intend to do, we shall leave to the world the beginnings of a new humanity.
What's the matter with the old one?
Nothing. But it is doomed to extinction. Mr. Dollar, just think for yourself. Atom bombs, hydrogen bombs, biological warfare.
And don't forget the flying saucers, Mr. Trump.
Don't forget, indeed. Unknown objects hurtling through space, interplanetary traffic, dear. A prelude to invasion and destruction.
Now, wait a minute. How do you know? Who told you?
Mr. Dollar, Mr. Trump knows these things. He was a professor for many years, and he reads all the time. He knows all that.
Would you mind pouring me some of that coffee, Mrs. Trump?
Not at all. There.
Thank you. Mr. Trump, granted we're all doomed for extinction, how's knocking yourself off going to help? If you just stick it out, you'll not only enjoy a bit more time alive, but you'll also be around to see the fireworks.
You will notice, Mr. Dollar, that we are changing the beneficiary in our policies from our niece, Miss Hope Selden, to the young man who let you in here tonight, Mr. Irwin Harper.
Yes, I noticed that. And I also noticed that this young man isn't even related to you. Now, what's that all about?
Well, Hope is a frivolous girl. She laughed at us when we tried to tell her what's happening. Irwin is a serious-minded young man who will use the money brought to this household by our passing to make the down payment on a new human race.
Mrs. Trump, do you happen to have any brandy around?
Later, Mr. Dollar, later. You want to know why and how. Well, come along. We'll show you.
A nightmare is bad enough when you're asleep, but I was awake, and that's when they're really frightening. They took me down through the back of the house to a winding, half-lighted stairway into the belly of the black hole. The oppressive heat grew even more oppressive. More stairs, then tunnels, all the ceilings cement and lined with lead. All the walls covered with pens and cages, and all of them filled with
snakes, Mr. Dollar. Reptiles, hundreds of them. Every species, every variety known to modern man. Look at them. Look at them and look at them well, for here is the new beginning. When life as we know it is blasted off the face of this earth, either by man himself or by his planetary cousins. When that happens, then these shall be the inheritors of this global sphere, as they were in the beginning, according to the Meston theory as set down in 1903.
Yes, Mr. Dollar, Mr. Trump knows these things, don't you see?
No, I've got to admit I don't quite see.
You will. There. Look. Every pen, every cage is equipped with an automatic feeding device. Stored above the cages is enough scientifically developed food to keep these reptiles alive for 100 years if need be. Until the Holocaust, they will be cared for by young Harper.
I could use some old Harper myself.
When the Holocaust comes, Irwin Harper shall survive as long as possible. Then the machines will take over. The reptiles will be fed, and when the recording devices up on top say that the radioactivity and magnetic forces have been dissipated, the doors of the cages leading to the earth above shall be automatically projected outdoors, and the cycle shall be complete. Then the reptiles will be set free on the face of the earth to once again evolve themselves into the new humanity.
I see. Look, Mr. Trump, I'm out here to ask you a very simple question. What's all this got to do with your committing suicide?
That is easily answered, Mr. Dollar. We need money. We need a lot of money to buy the rest of the equipment. We are willing to give up the little that is left of our lives to provide it. Irwin will remain behind to put our money to good use.
Mr. and Mrs. Trump, I don't question your motives, but you can't blame me for taking a second look at your methods. This man springing from reptile theory is flimsy enough, but that's your opinion and you're entitled to it. But what you're not entitled to, and I'm quoting the Bible and the law, is the act of taking your own lives.
We've talked that over among us, and we are willing to take our chances.
All right. But at least you'll agree this is a whole lot to take in one sitting, isn't it? Now let me bring these papers back in the morning. We can talk it over once more, and Then you're free to go ahead and sign.
Well, time is short, but I don't think a few hours will matter. Do you agree, Mrs. Trump?
Yes, I agree.
Good. Now, if you'll be kind enough to either let me have a car or have somebody drive me into town.
Car? We have no car. We haven't had one for months, and we've borrowed them from the property. Hasn't been one past the gate for almost a year.
Oh? Including tonight?
Yes, of course, including tonight. You'll just have to stay here.
Come now. We'll take you up to your room, Mr. Dollar. What you need is a good night's sleep.
I'd have had a better night's sleep on a tightrope. My room had the same sticky, hot air that filled the rest of the house. It may be great for snakes and orchids, but I'll take my steamings at a Turkish bath. I stretched out on the bed, turned off the lamp, and closed my eyes. But for 20 straight minutes, I could still see ghost automobiles and snakes and more snakes. I kept my eyes closed as much as I could because when they were open, I could see on the wall the serpentine shadows of the tree branches outside. At least, I hoped that's what they were. Then, just as I was hoping the hardest that the realest of them all wasn't what it looked like, out of the blackness from across the room I heard... I reached down under the bed for a shoe. Not much of a weapon, but all I could think of at the moment. Then I snapped on the lamp and saw it. It had plenty of coils, all right, but it was strictly non-venomous. The steam radiator standing there hissing my performance. But my nerve ends didn't even have a chance to lie down. They were still standing straight up when it happened. I was out of bed, across the room, and out into the hall in slightly more time than it takes to tell. The ray of light from my open door fell across a jumbled pile of beautiful young women. I bent over her and...
In just a moment, we will return to the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first... Now, with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Walking in your sleep?
Yes, you should be more careful.
Perhaps you need analysis coma is. Perhaps you need analysis. Learn what the basic coma is. What did he say, Mrs. Trump?
Sounded like he said, where is she? I'm right here, Mr. Dollar, right here taking care of you.
Oh. Yeah, somebody's been taking care of me, all right. Oh. Well, where is she, huh? She's gone. What have you done with her? Come on now, where's the...
Mr. Dollar, you better get hold of yourself. There is no girl here.
Oh, no? Oh, look. Earlier tonight, you told me there was no automobile around here, but there was. I saw the tracks in the driveway with my own eyes. I walked in one of them.
All right. Look out the window, Mrs. Trump.
No, I don't see any tracks.
Do you see any footprints?
No, nothing, just snow.
Okay. At least you know I walked up that driveway, right? And my footprints are covered up. So it's been snowing, the wind has been blowing, it's been drifting. Now I suppose you're going to tell me you didn't hear the girl scream.
Come now, Mr. Dollar. You were having a nightmare. No girl scream.
Well, if you didn't hear anything, what are you doing out here? What brought you?
Young man, we have a right to be wherever in our own home we choose to be. But I might as well tell you, I found you when I started to the kitchen to get some crackers and warm milk. I found you lying here.
Yeah, everyone's lying around here.
Young man, that does it. Once we get those papers signed, I'm afraid we shall have to ask you to leave.
That's all right with me. They're here in my room. Come on.
The way some people stand in the way of the few of us who are making a genuine effort to sustain some kind of life on
Yes, Mr. Trump, you're absolutely right.
You'll find a pen there on the table. The papers are right here in my... Hey.
Yes, Mr. Dollar?
The papers are gone.
Well, how can they be gone if you brought them at all?
We warn you, Mr. Dollar, we will not stand for any more of your dilly-dallying. We want those papers, and now. We are determined to sign them immediately.
Suddenly, that has become my fondest hope. Now, do us all a favor. Go back to bed and give me a chance to do a little walking in your sleep.
Who is it? Dollar, what do you mean barging in here?
I'm looking for a girl, and I'll admit this is a very unlikely place to find her.
I'll thank you to get out of my bedroom.
You realize how suspicious you look just lying there in bed?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean that about 15 minutes ago, a woman screamed at the top of her lungs not 20 feet from here. Now, what's your story? That you didn't hear it? Or does it happen around here all the time?
You're crazy. I didn't hear any woman scream, and I don't think you did.
Okay, have it your way. I'm hearing things. But one thing I know, I'm not feeling things. See here? There's a lump on my head. That's for real.
That doesn't interest me a bit.
If I find out you put it there, it'll interest you. I'll not only put an egg on your skull, I'll make a whole omelet. In case you don't know it, you're looking at a citizen who's burned up. M-A-D. Mad. Started through the rest of the rooms in the house. I thought I knew who I was looking for. The only person I could think of who would profit by seeing those papers not signed. The present beneficiary of the Trump policy, their niece, Miss Hope Selden. All I could find in the next 6 bedrooms was a lot of old-fashioned furniture. I was just looking under the bed in the last when the wind outside took on a new note. I ran back to my own room, flung open the window, and stuck my head out into the blizzard trying to get a look in the direction of the noise. I wasn't taking any chances on that kicker finally sparking the automobile into life before I had a chance to see who was in it. I swung my feet over the sill and dropped the one story into a high drift.
Come on. Come on. Oh, darn it.
Wasting your time. Around here, people only go for sleigh rides.
What do you want? Who are you?
You should know. You had your hand in my coat pocket earlier tonight. Of course, unfortunately, I wasn't in the coat, but something else was. And I want it back.
If I took anything out of your pocket, I had plenty of reason and plenty of right to do it.
The only one I want taking things out of my pocket is the cleaner when he's spilling out the tobacco crumbs. Now, come on, give me those papers.
No, just let me talk to you first. I want you to hear my side of things.
Look, I'm freezing. If it takes more than 5 seconds for you to say what you gotta say, no dice.
Well, then let's go back in the house. I know you'll believe me.
I saw plenty about her to interest me, but nothing to relax me. She looked like a big-time operator. A gal who would be as dangerous kissing you as killing you. As I closed the door behind us, she walked across the room and made a perfectly natural movement as though to throw open her coat. When she turned, she had a gun in her hand. It was the first time I'd ever seen a shoulder holster on a woman.
Now put your hands up, Mr. Dollar, and listen.
If you'll just unwrap your finger from around that trigger, I'll be more likely to keep my mind on what you're saying. Go ahead. I'm listening.
You've got to help me.
Help you?
Yes, help me prevent my aunt and uncle from making fools of themselves. We can't let them leave their money to Irwin Harper.
Well, it's their money. They're attempting to do what they believe is right.
That money is mine, and I'll kill anyone to get it. Irwin Harper won't stick around 5 minutes after my aunt and uncle have killed themselves. He isn't planning on taking care of their filthy snakes. I was in his room tonight after he went to sleep. In his pocket, I found a ticket for South America. His plans were all made. He caught me in there and chased me out in the hall and slugged me.
When I came to, you were lying there unconscious beside me. I ran downstairs and I fixed their steam. I threw the switch to release their stinking reptiles. By now, the snakes are all outside, freezing to death.
Don't move. You don't want to... So now you know, both. You know what that means? I'll have to kill you both. And I'll get away with it.
Why, you miserable hunk of putty, you conniving thing.
The Trumps want me to have the money, not you. I worked out that whole plan for them, all of it. And I'm the one they want to take care of it. Now drop that gun, Hope.
You'd better drop it, Hope. It doesn't make any difference anyway.
What do you mean it won't make any difference?
Because our friend over there isn't going to pull the trigger.
Oh, no? And why not?
Because Hope has released all those snakes. One thing she forgot. When snakes get cold, they try to get warm. And one of them just joined the party. He's right behind you, Irwin.
I don't believe you. You're bluffing.
Can't you hear him?
You can't fool me. That's a steam radiator. In this house, they're all noisy.
Irwin, if you make any kind of a move or fire that gun, he's going to strike. I'll make you a deal. Let me reach down and get that gun off the floor. I'll blast its head off. Careful. Don't move, Irwin.
No, you don't. I know what you want that gun for.
I wouldn't even turn around and look, Irwin.
Not only going to move, I'm going to get that gun out of your reach.
There was a snake.
Look out, he's on the loose.
Oh, he jumped me! Super snatcher! The worst of them all.
Well, you've got the gun. Go on.
Shoot him, Howard, shoot him!
All right, that's for him. But you're not staying behind me to get your... This is for you!
Mr. and Mrs. Arbuthnot Trump were fresh out of beneficiaries, to say nothing of snakes. The only one that had found his way back into the warmth of the house was the one I'd mistaken for a steam radiator. And without a handy method for creating a new humanity, the Trumps found themselves without a purpose. So I gave them one. At my suggestion, and at the moment, Mr. T is hard at work in his home laboratory, attempting to develop a machine with which mankind will fight the flying saucer. Mr. Trump's invention will be known as the Flying Cup, and will be secretly dedicated to a waitress I once knew. Expense account, item 3, $113.52 railroad fare, High Bridge, North Dakota to Hartford, Connecticut. Expense account total, $763.90. You may say this doesn't add up, but neither does anything else about this case. Signed, yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd with music by Leif Stevens. Edmund O'Brien can currently be seen starring in Harry M. Popkin's United Artists production, DOA. Featured in our cast were Peggy Weber, Harley Bear, Hugh Thomas, Dick Ryan, Jess Kirkpatrick, and Mary Shipp. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. Join us again next week when Edmund O'Brien returns in another adventure of yours truly,
Johnny Dollar.
The Echo of Jesse James, a modern story of how police tracked down a couple of train robbers, will be brought to you on CBS's Gangbusters this Saturday night. The narrator will be the Superintendent of Metropolitan Police, Washington, D.C., and another Gangbusters wonderful cast will reenact this true story for you. Join us this Saturday night on most of these same CBS stations for Gangbusters drama, The Echo of Jesse James. This is Roy Rowan speaking. This is CBS, where yours truly, Johnny Dollar, meets adventure every Friday night. The Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. This episode was notable for a couple reasons. The first was right at the beginning, the telephone opening. It's a signature Johnny Dollarism that's been absent from the series until now. This is a clever way to dispense Johnny's expenses. It's more interesting than O'Brien or Russell telling us about how he got the assignment in his voiceover, and was used to great effect by Bob Bailey. This episode also had to be one of the more creepy episodes of Johnny Dollar or any detective show I've heard. There's a lot to think about, and some interesting philosophy on display all around by the various characters here. By the way, when he refers to New Harper and Old Harper, according to the Who is Johnny Dollar matter, the Old Harper refers to Old Harper Bourbon. So there you go. All right, now we turn to an email regarding the seeming disappearance of Charles Russell. Stephen Prager emails that he was intrigued by my statement that I didn't know what happened to Charles Russell after his Johnny Dollar run, so I did a very quick search. Per California death records, Charles Watson Russell was born March 31st, 1980 in New York and died January 18th, 1985 at the age of 66. And there were a couple IMDb.com listings that didn't seem to go anywhere. He said another IMDb listing for a different Charles Russell, a.k.a. Charles W. Russell, shows producer credits from 1951 to 1980, including 3 movies that he had found some Charles Russells under, dates probably notably starting from the end of your Russell's Johnny Dollar period until a few years before Russell died. This doesn't confirm anything, but it is suggestive that they are one and the same. And this does make sense. This particular Charles Russell, Charles W. Russell, did some producer work on shows like Casey Crime Photographer, which was for CBS, some episodes of You Are There, The Untouchables, Cain's 100, Judd for the Defense, and the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. This all seems pretty probable. It makes sense from a biographical standpoint. As I've discussed before, Russell's career wasn't by any means going extremely well. He had really almost no radio work outside of Johnny Dollar, very limited movie roles, and television was emerging, which would create a lot of new jobs for those who would get in on the ground floor. It's indicative, it's not conclusive. He has some suggestions. He said, I would suggest that if one of your listeners lives in Los Angeles, they go to a local library and check Russell's obituary in the LA Times, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, or Beverly Hills Courier from January 1985, and hopefully find the information you're looking for. Well, thanks. If anyone does happen to be there, it would be much appreciated. I do think that for now, I'm going to lean towards that being our tentative explanation. Still a lot of questions about Russell's personal life, but I think that this gives us some information on the professional life, and certainly not a complete filmography, if that's the case. Because a lot of earlier television movies and TV shows were not necessarily well documented. But this thing with the 2 entries on IMDb for separate parts of the career, that does happen. It happened with Bob Bailey, who wrote several episodes for television, and those television episodes ended up in a separate profile under Robert B. Bailey, when they're actually one and the same person. Finally, we have an email from Leslie who says that she agrees with the listener who wanted My Favorite Brunette. This is the one where Bob Hope is a baby photographer and is mistaken for the detective, who I think is played as a cameo by none other than Alan Ladd. Another film which I'm pretty sure wouldn't be in the public domain, but your listeners may like, is Steve Martin's film Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. It pieces together lots of old detective movies with Steve Martin putting himself in the story, all in glorious black and white. Well, it definitely looks interesting, and also definitely not public domain. The only films that have ended up in the public domain since 1964, with few exceptions, were made-for-TV pictures that the TV stations didn't think was worth putting a copyright notice on, because that was a requirement for works to be copyrighted up until 1989. You had to have the copyright notice in there. But thanks for the comment, and people can enjoy on their own or with Netflix, which is something else you can sign up over for at greatdetectives.net. All right, well, we're going to wrap up the show. Comments, email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And you can follow the show at Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.